Meeting of June 22nd, 2015 to order. We would like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call shows, I'm assuming momentarily still absent is Aaron, and then department heads are here.
He's probably walking down the street. A lot of parking out there.
We can go ahead and proceed on at this point to approval of minutes from June 8th meeting.
Remove the minutes.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of bills. We have none. Approval of agenda. Any additions or deletions to our city manager?
At this time, yes, I would like to remove the item number 8 under new business, the IUOE contract. The union has not finished its ratification vote, and therefore I don't believe that it is proper for the council to go forward with making a vote on this. We thought we had reached everything on a TA. We were making some typo changes as of this afternoon, but as the union has not had a chance to vote on it for ratification, I don't think that it's proper for the council to make a decision on the contract at this time.
Okay. Aaron?
Yeah, I asked for something to be put on the agenda. Is there a reason it didn't get put on the agenda?
Which item was that? You asked me to do research and asked me to,
No, I asked for your goals to be discussed and approved at this meeting.
I did not have that written down. I'm sorry, I did not have that written down as having something
I didn't
as an
remember
agenda
that.
I
item.
do not recall that.
I asked for it during the closed session.
Council does not recall that.
Okay, then I must have been at my own little meeting.
I actually don't recall that either.
Can I have it on next agenda, please?
You certainly may.
Anything else?
Well,
Is-
I don't know if we can talk about it necessarily.
No, I don't want to talk about it. I want her to be prepared to talk about it.
Right, and I just might, yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine, fair enough.
I wonder, is there potential for us to approve it contingent on ratification? I mean, if there's no changes made?
I can put
Just to
them
get them.
together and submit them to the council probably by the beginning of...
No, I'm talking about the contract, not your goals.
Oh, the IUOE contract? There is one section on the service language that is still just being tweaked.
Oh, I thought you said there was simply typos being
Well,
corrected.
there was typos, but there was language the union was required to ask us, that they had said they would provide to us. They did not provide it to us until late this afternoon,
That's on them.
so it's
Okay.
not in the final copy.
Well, I move the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. On public comment, I think we allow public comment on any issue that's not listed on the agenda, but I would like to hold any of those and then go ahead with our fire officers swearing in process. And got some honorable things going to happen here in a moment.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the time this evening. Before I get started with this real quick, I'd very much like to give praise to Chief Collins, South Lyon Police Department, along with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. They were able to get an arson conviction for the fire on University we had back in December. Those arson cases are very, very complicated cases, and it's very difficult to get those charges to stick. And a person was sentenced between 9 and 30 years. So, and that was all 100% to excellent police work by South Lyon PD and excellent investigation work by the Oakland County Fire Investigation Unit. So we work excellent with those guys together, but they really hit it out of the park. And an arson conviction to stick to that degree is something to be very proud of. So I thank them for their effort on that. So tonight, we're requesting time to swear in 3 of our fire officers. Mike Weir will be promoted from captain to deputy chief. Corey Armstrong will be promoted from lieutenant to captain, and Chris Deminick from sergeant to lieutenant. So all of our command and organization is run with paid-on-call personnel, and these members have spent significant amount of time and hours away from family to go to classes across the state, better themselves. They went through a competitive process. We brought in outside people, and I really feel that they're the best to help move our department forward, and I appreciate their efforts on this. So I would ask now the city clerk to please swear them in, or read them the oath. Ask for the family members to please pin the badges now, please. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
We're one lucky town to have a group of people like that working for us to help save our relatives or anybody in need, and being there on call, and we're really lucky to have them. It's a lot of work. Thank you. Also would like, now at this point, public comment. Anybody wishes to speak on any item that's not on the agenda? State your name and address.
Carl Richards, 390 Lennox. Just some small items for your note here. 1 week from tonight, at this time, be the 29th of July, is the official commencement of shutdown for the tube mill. For the next 2 weeks, the unofficial start of shutdown will be the day shift, at the end of day shift on the 26th. Because they haven't been working Fridays in the last month or two, if anybody ever bothered to notice, okay? All right, so that'll go through till the 13th of July, which will be the next council meeting, okay? So I'm just letting the people know that that's going to occur, okay? Next item is, mark your calendar. It'll be after the 4th of July weekend and probably before the next council meeting when the railroad will be closing 10 Mile. Okay. For
In Pontiac Trail?
Pontiac. I don't know about the Pontiac Trail one. I think that will come later. I think the 10 Mile one will be the one to go first. Okay. Now, either way, I'm pretty close.
They've
Okay.
already made the improvements to 10 Mile. Why would they be closing it again?
No, there's another one. There's another section to go in. Yeah, I haven't finished yet, yeah. That was temporary, what they did last year. Yeah, I remember, yeah, I agree with you. Okay. Anyway, I just thought I'd let you know that, so everybody's aware of it, okay? Also, a very minor occurrence, unnoted, happened on this exact date, in the year 1946. And without going into any details, it happened in Eloise General Hospital, 9 months after the VJ week-long celebration at the end of World War II. And that was the start of my journey in life. And
I was going to say, you're a byproduct of that, are you?
I wound up here today.
All right, happy birthday.
Okay.
Happy birthday, Carl.
Anybody else? Okay, old business. We're considering a resolution authorizing the selected location, McCaddy Park, as the location of the community center and authorizing the designated city delegate to negotiate the land acquisition and utility connections fees. And I understand we're going to have a presentation.
Yeah, we're here today pretty much making a recommendation for a certain parcel of McCaddy Park. And what we're going to do today is we have a presentation to pretty much explain how we got to this point. First of all, I'd like to introduce and thank the members of the committee that have put in 3 years of hard work, dedicated a lot of their own time trying to get to the point where we're at today. From Green Oak Township, we have Karen Weber, Amy Ponsock, who's going to be speaking, and then the Township Supervisor, Mark St. Charles. From Lyon Township, we have Jenny Ertel, Jason Bibby, and Petty Carconi, who is the Lyon Township treasurer. And from South Lyon, we have Ron Morelli, Scott Black, and myself. We just wanted to explain to everybody why we're making the recommendation for McCaddy Park. It has been a process where the committee, believe it or not, has spent the last 2 years amongst themselves trying to come up with the location. Because in order to go forward with this project, even to get to the little, believe me, this is just tip of the iceberg. We still have the whole iceberg underneath the water to deal with in this issue. But one of the main problems we were having is trying to agree on an acceptable location for all three communities involved in this project. So we are going to make a presentation regarding where we're at, why we're recommending a McCaddy Park, and we're going to open it up to discussion if anybody has any questions, because we know there's a lot of information flying around. If you're a Facebook fan, it's been all over Facebook. So we're trying to set the record straight, what we're trying to do, and we are thankful that you all came, if you came here for this presentation tonight, so at least you can understand where we're at, where we're coming from. And again, this is not a done deal. I mean, there are so many other hurdles we have to deal with, but one of the big ones right now, so we can go to that next phase, is where we're going to put it. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Amy and Jason. And hopefully,
Want me to get that mic?
Could be dark in a hurry.
yeah, not too dark. Is it warmed up yet? Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Amy Ponsock. I am a resident of Green Oak Township. I've lived in Green Oak Township for about 10 years. I have a family I have 3 sons, and we are very active in the community with recreation, sports, etc. I volunteered for this committee because I thought the community center would be a great addition to the area. I just have a presentation here with everybody that we'd like to get started with. Yep. So in our agenda, we'd like to give you a brief background of kind of what we've already have accomplished and why we've actually come to this conclusion. So as a background, we have some site selection criteria, and basically what would be the next step if we selected a location. So before we get into the details about why we're here, the committee would like to present to you a summary of our actions over the past 2 years to help guide you in tonight's decision. The committee has put forth a lot of time and effort into this, and we appreciate the opportunity to share our findings with you. In 2012, the South Lyon Area Recreation Authority, SLARA, recognized a need and desire in the community for a recreation center. In response to this, an ad hoc committee was created and met for the first time in August of 2012. After some discussion, it was agreed that the best way to gauge interest for a community center was to distribute surveys to find out if residents wanted a community center, and if so, what they wanted to have included with it. We worked quickly to put together a survey and then proceeded to distribute them in September during Pumpkin Fest. We also had copies available at the libraries, the Center for Active Adults, at each municipal building, throughout area businesses, and online via the municipalities' websites. The surveys were made available for residents to take for 1 month. After a month, 998 surveys were collected, and the results were analyzed. We received surveys from the City of South Lyon, Green Oak Township, Lyon Township, Salem Township, and even a few from other surrounding areas such as Northfield Township and Novi. With these surveys, it was found that there was an overwhelming positive response for a community center, with 93% of people stating they were very and somewhat interested, and only 3.2% opposed. One specific question on these surveys, residents were asked, what facilities would you like to see at a community center? The top responses are 82% of the people wanted a pool, 73% wanted workout gym facilities, 62% walking running track, 58% children's water park, 44% basketball volleyball courts, 44% community gathering rooms, and 41% wanted a teen center. Because the residents showed such a great interest in a community center, the SLARA created the Community Center Oversight Committee. The committee is comprised of 3 representatives from each of the SLARA's participating municipalities: City of South Lyon, Lyon Township, and Green Oak Township. The 3 members are comprised of 1 elected official and 2 at-large individuals. Also guiding the committee is Amy Allen, Director of the South Lyon Area Recreation Authority, and Linda Graham, Director of the South Lyon Center for Active Adults. Amy and Linda regularly attend committee meetings and give input regarding the recreation programming and senior community respectively. The committee is charged with investigating and then giving advice and recommendations to the authority. Such items include identifying site location criteria, survey results, best practices, and limitations such as utilities to find a central, easy location to access and to gather information on community impact, cost, financing, design, construction, and operation. In 2013, the Oversight Committee began to meet and discuss the issues of building a community center and whether or not it was feasible for our municipalities. Here's an overview of what the committee has accomplished to date. We invited guest speakers to our meetings. The Assistant City Manager of Farmington Hills was kind enough to come and talk about the process they used to modernize and expand their existing city hall. We used his knowledge and experience to help guide us in starting the process of finding the right consultants to talk and meet with. We then met with Strader, Barch & Associates and Clark Construction Company. Their firms worked to construct the 130,000 square foot Livonia Recreation Center in 2001. We discussed millages, bonds, tax bases, approximate cost estimates, and the design and construction process for a building. We've also investigated other local community centers and operations. Places include the Macomb Township Community Center. This building is fairly similar to what our community is desiring. We have looked into their facilities, of what they built, and how they run their operation. We are using this information to help guide us. Several other committee members have been to Livonia Rec Center. As I stated earlier, we met with the design team and construction company of the center, and they have discussed their experience with building this. This has been very helpful to the committee. One committee member previously lived in Warren. She has firsthand knowledge of their community center and was also in contact with management to ask questions. 2 committee members have spoke with management at the Romulus Recreation Center. We received information on their budgeting, operation costs, and how they overall manage their center. Many other places were reviewed by a subcommittee, and those seem to have similar amenities, operation cost, and programming options. So with the unrelenting question of how much is this going to cost the taxpayers, we felt it was necessary to inquire about partnership opportunities. Knowing that hospitals and health service-based businesses often share facilities, we contacted Michigan Rehabilitation and Providence Health. Neither were interested in a partnership. The YMCA was also contacted, and they showed interest in only managing the community center, not building or help funding it. The committee did meet with the owner of Total Sports Complex and Cattails Golf Course for a possible partnership. We discussed domed fields and the expansion of the existing building on the Cattails Golf Course property. A $7.4 million multi-year proposal was submitted, and the committee decided that this did not meet the community needs. Further discussions were not pursued. In the spring of 2013, the committee agreed that a conceptual design of a building was wanted and needed. We put together a request for proposal to give architects experienced with recreation centers. We then asked each community for $10,000 for a total of $30,000 to be able to hire a firm. We contacted 13 firms to bid on the proposal. Of those, 3 did not bid, 4 combined to submit 2 bids, and the remainder did not reply. In September 2013, it was unanimously agreed to hire Newman Smith Architecture to begin a conceptual design. During 2013, Salem Township was invited to attend our committee meetings. David Trent, a Salem Township trustee, attended some of our committee meetings to inquire about the SLARA and the community center. In January 2014, the Oversight Committee presented to the Salem Township Council in efforts to have them join SLARA and the community center. Salem Township Council reviewed and discussed with their residents, and in March, they announced that they were not going to join. The committee then decided to take the summer off in 2014 to regroup and reassess. Our meetings resumed in September. Upon our first meeting back, we all agreed that we needed to focus on selecting one location to be able to get a better cost estimate for a building. Selecting a location now is imperative as it will allow the committee to move forward in identifying cost, site and/or design issues, community impact, and financing opportunities. Now, let's get started on why we are here in front of you tonight. The Oversight Committee identified the northeast corner of McCaddy Park as a great location to give further consideration, but we need the council's approval. To begin the site selection process, the SEMCOG population demographics were obtained. Demographics indicated that the most population growth is in Lyon Township. The city of South Lyon and Green Oak Township did not project much population growth. With the survey results indicating that the majority of amenities wanted are indoor activities such as a pool, gym, workout facilities, and community gathering rooms, it was discussed during our meetings whether or not sports fields should be included with a community center. Some factors we considered regarding the fields were that the Legacy Center in Green Oak Township and Volunteer Park currently provide a large area of fields for baseball, soccer, lacrosse, and football. It is our understanding that other organizations are looking into upgrading and expanding the fields at Volunteer Park in the near future. Additional land for fields also comes with a significant cost. As we have been working with Newman Smith on a conceptual design of the building, Newman Smith calculated a general cost for the building that our community is asking for. The estimated cost of just the building already would be pushing the upper limits of our budget. The committee concluded that providing enough land to include sport fields was determined to not be economically feasible for our 3 communities to support. Therefore, looking for a site was not to include additional land for sport fields. This brings us to what the committee identified as criteria in determining a location for the community center. The following is the criteria we used. Number 1, is it centrally located? This is a very important factor as our 3 communities encompass a large geographic area and we want it to be accessible for everyone. Number 2, what is the population density around the site? A standard reasonable walking distance is a half mile. Does this site include a high population density with this half-mile walking distance? Or how many people could walk there? Number 3, is there access to other activity centers or businesses? In other words, where else can people go instead of the community center? Number 4, is the land suitable for a community facility? Such as, is the site big enough? Or does it have any environmental issues? Or are there any constraints to work around? Number 5, is it accessible by non-motorized transportation? For example, the Huron Valley trails and sidewalks. Number 6, does building on the site minimize environmental impacts? Does it have connectivity to complementary recreational resources? Number 7, is this a city-owned property or municipal-owned property? This is a key factor. If the property is not owned by a municipality, then the proposed site must have an option to buy or be purchased by the SLARA to secure it before this goes to public vote. If the SLARA purchases a property and the community center is voted down, then the SLARA is caught with paying off the land that they would not be able to afford on its own. There are many problems with selecting property that is privately owned, and the committee agreed that it should be a municipal-owned property. And last criteria, does the site have utilities available? This is another key factor. Do we need to construct water main and sanitary sewer to this site? Or are they already available for connection? To be able to construct a building that the community desires, every cost factor must be analyzed. Public utilities are expensive to construct, and this must be included in our criteria. Think about it this way. If public utilities need to be constructed, this will take away money from the overall building that we so desire. We must stay within our means. So with these defined criteria to follow, the committee reviewed many available properties within our communities. 12 sites have been specifically reviewed. While Salem Township was looking into joining the SLARA, we evaluated 2 properties. Some property around Pontiac Trail and 7 Mile. This was not buildable land for a large center. Also the southeast corner of Pontiac Trail and 8 Mile, next to the Salem South Lyon District Library. Since Salem did not join into the SLARA, these properties were removed from our list. 2 properties were evaluated in Green Oak Township. Note that there is not any sufficient municipal-owned property in Green Oak available for a community center. We looked at around 10 Mile in Rushton and 12 Mile in Rushton, but these are privately owned parcels and therefore removed from our consideration. Lyon Township had a few properties that we looked at. We looked at the 11 Mile in Spalding. We approached the South Lyon schools about this property, but it was already designated for a new elementary school. Milford Road near Abbey Park. This is the property that is designed for the new Lyon Township Library. This property is unavailable for our use. 10 Mile Road or west of Griswold. This is the site of the previous Casterline Funeral Home, now the Shepherd's Way Lutheran Church. This was a privately owned property. It became unavailable for our use. 9 Mile in Griswold, the southeast corner. This is vacant land that was considered by the committee, but recently purchased by a developer. Pontiac Trail and Pontiac Trail. This is a large parcel located across Irwin's Orchard. This property is privately owned and already has options on it. The land would be very expensive to purchase. 11 Mile and Milford Road, a portion of the 64-acre site owned by Lyon Township. This property does not fit all of our defined criteria because it is somewhat isolated in terms of location. Utilities are not available with connection charges, expected to be in the millions of dollars. Requisite road upgrades are necessary, and it is not accessible by bike trail and is not within walking distance. And properties in City of South Lyon, we looked at 10 Mile in Dixboro, the southeast corner. This 10-acre property was one of the first parcels that we considered in high regard, as it met many of our criteria. We hired an appraiser for suitability and cost of the land. Afterward, the owner decided He was only willing to sell the middle portion of the parcel and not break up the lots for our wants and needs. That made this parcel too small, in addition to needing to purchase an option on the land. Unless the owner reconsiders, the committee unanimously agreed that this is not a feasible location. Volunteer Park. Although this is a large parcel of municipal-owned land, this is not a centrally located area, and public utilities would need to be constructed along with road improvements. In addition, other organizations are looking into upgrading and expanding the fields. This parcel did not meet many of our defined criteria. And finally, McCaddy Park. So why do we find that the northeast corner of McCaddy Park is a great location to build a community center? Frankly, it meets all of our criteria. It's centrally located within the 3 communities. It's in the downtown area. The term downtown is primarily used to refer to a city's core or central business district. It is the part of a city or town where there are large buildings, stores, offices, etc. It's often in a geographical, commercial, or communal sense. It makes sense to place a community center in the core of its community. This site has access to the Huron Valley trails. People can ride their bike to the community center from the surrounding communities. It is accessible for the middle school students to walk to after school to use as a teen center type program or go play a game of basketball. This, instead of these kids hanging out over at the strip mall across from the school. If you have a middle schooler like I do, then this is appealing. This land is suitable. There is enough land to place a building that would encompass what the residents want in a center. The building would be proposed to be placed where the 2 houses are located along Pontiac Trail. This area right now appears to be underutilized as the majority of people use the baseball fields, playground, and sledding hill. This location is accessible. There's a large population of people that can walk to this facility. We also must consider any future public transportation in South Lyon. This would be an easy access point. It can bring in business to the city. There are other places to go nearby, such as the grocery store or Witch's Hat. It may open up funding opportunities through the DDA. And finally, the council members from Green Oak Township and Lyon Township agree that this location will work for their communities. So, the community center can be a destination. It's where people can drop their kids off while taking a swim class and then go run errands or at other places such as the grocery store or stay and get a quick workout in. We can have an outdoor splash park, an indoor pool with features similar to the recreation pool at Milford High School. Basketball courts, workout facilities, and areas to display art. There will be community rooms available for meetings, parties, showers, or banquets. This is intended to be a place where there is something for everyone. There is so much potential to make this a great place where people from tots to seniors want to be. After much research and discussion, the Oversight Committee under the South Lyon Area Recreation Authority is asking for the council's agreement that the northeast corner of McCaddy Park be considered as a potential site for the location of the community center. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Scott Black. He's another committee member. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Scott Black, 946 Westbrook. I'm just going to talk about a couple of the things relating to the site and also with the considerations. I've been in South Lyon for over 10 years now. I'm on the Oversight Committee along with Amy and several other people. I'm a licensed landscape architect in the state of Michigan and as well as Connecticut. I'm going to talk a little bit about where the proposed building would be located, which Amy kind of alluded to in the southeast corner there. This conceptual site plan is a bird's eye view, so almost like you're looking from above the sledding hill there. And as you can see from the conceptual rendering, the proposed building would be placed where the 2 existing City of South Lyon houses are located. The parking is shown only conceptually and would still need to be engineered as well as go through the City of South Lyon standards. The Oversight Committee is proposing several existing amenities located in McCaddy Park to remain and be undisturbed. Those include the existing sledding hill, the 2 recently renovated ball diamonds, and the existing sand volleyball courts. In addition to these amenities, the conceptual site plan is proposing a splash park adjacent to the building on the south side, a relocated playground that is approximately 30 to 40% larger and would also include new playground items and amenities structures, and 2 new basketball courts that could potentially be flooded in the winter and used for hockey and ice skating. Next, these are just some of the next steps that we're looking for. Like Mike alluded to, there's a lot we need to do still. So we kind of did a timeline here from June 2015 through November 2015, not necessarily in this order, but we'll do the same kind of presentation to Lyon Township, kind of an informal information presentation. Same presentation to Green Oak Township. We're going to be probably conducting a site tour and walk with the communities and stakeholders, conducting community forums and workshops, site use and arrangement dialogue, meaning what kind of agreement can be worked out with the McCaddy Park, if that's the chosen site, site utility and site tapping arrangement dialogue, final due diligence for project funding and operational cost, a traffic impact study, a geotech report and soil borings for the building, finalization of the program and feasibility for the building, recommendation to the South Lyon Area Rec Authority, additional community forums and presentations, and then put on the ballot for the 2016 City of South Lyon, Lyon Township, and Green Oak Township if the SLERA board approves their recommendation. Projected after that, assuming that the ballot does pass with all 3 communities, we would send out a request for proposals in order to organize and select a design team, which would include an architect, a civil engineer, general contractor, et cetera. Additional community workshops, and then a full-blown site plan review process through the City of South Lyon to meet all the requirements associated with this, and then going right into permits, and then hopefully construction. Thank you.
So while we're here, is we are at a major stepping stone. In order for us to look at using some of the, first of all, we don't want to spend any more money that we've been allocated by the 3 communities unless we can spend it on a site that we recommend, and that, in this case, it's McCaddy Park, and if the council supports it. There are so many other hurdles we have to get to even before we get to that point where we put the shovel into the ground. Don't forget, we still have to get 3 communities to approve any funding measures for this, and each community has to approve it. This is just one of the stepping stones we're at right now, because we have to pick a location. We have to be able to go to Lyon Township and Green Oak Township and say, look, South Lyon's on board. We're asking for you to support this, even though we've had indications from the 2 communities, since Mark St. Charles is on our committee and he's the township supervisor. Obviously, he's been discussing this with Green Oak, and the same with Patty Carconi, since she's the Lyon Township treasurer. She's been discussing it with her board. We're here tonight to see if there's support from this council to at least go forward with the conceptual design, so we could start meeting with people that we need to start meeting with, just to get a cost estimate of what we're going to do going forward. And we're here to answer any questions that the public may have, the council may have, but we need to, we're at that stepping stone. We need to know if we can go further. That's why we're here. So I open it up to any questions that anybody may have, just so that we can hopefully put some of these rumors to rest of what we're doing and why we're here.
Well, right out of the gates, I've got 2. You allude to budget, but you don't ever say the number. I can't imagine that's unintentional, so.
No. The reason we are not doing the number right now is because we got to pick a spot. I mean, the next step.
Well, this is the spot you wanted to pick, so you have to have assigned a number to that spot.
Right, okay. I mean, we have 3 different versions of the community center. We have a small version that the advisory council said, no, it's not going to meet our needs, because it was, I don't think it had a gym, did it? Or did the small one have a gym? Right. We all decided when we did the revenue generating aspect of it, because we actually consulted with somebody on how much revenue we could generate based on the size of the facility, the small one was out, and that came in at 17 million?
17.3.
17, yeah, thanks, Joe. 17.3 million. So we decided that based on the operating expenses and the revenue we could generate, we couldn't, that wouldn't float. We'd be carrying a loss every year for trying to float that type of facility.
What was the offset when you
was,
grew it?
It was about 150 or 180,000 projected. But again, those were based on numbers.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, what was the offset to generate revenue that justified expanding the size of the building?
Oh, it was based on, you know,
What is the activity that's going to generate the revenue?
that was the thing. When we didn't have the gym, it was based on the pool only, pool and the community rooms.
Okay.
That was, we weren't making enough revenue just having the pool.
Okay.
Based on the numbers that we saw. We added a gym to the second version, the medium version, which came in at an estimated cost of, I believe, 20 or 21 million. Yes. And
4
that-
mil to add the gym?
Right,
Okay.
and that added the gym. That was a, I think it was a full-size court? Multi-use court. And then the large version, which included 2 gyms, came in around 25 million. We made sure that the footprint, that, you know, we used the footprint of the large facility with the 2 gyms to see if it would fit on the northeast corner of McCaddy Park. It does. That's why we wanted to make sure, before we came asking for the recommendation, or not the recommendation, but the support to at least go forward with the conceptual design. Believe me, there are so, like, money, how are we gonna fund it? But until we pick a location, it's hard to go look for funding sources when you really don't know where it's gonna be built.
I can understand that, but this is a very complicated thing for us to try to calculate and justify an asset that the community has paid for in hopes of, you know, nurturing into something that'll be for South Lyon. How are we being made whole from that?
That's the next step.
Okay,
Right now, if there's support for us to look at McCaddy Park, that's part of the next step. What is the city gonna charge for it, that parcel? Those are steps we need to take, but we can't take those steps until we get a commitment,
Okay.
at least in theory, from this council to see if we can go to that next step, to start talking. Because right
Okay.
now, we can't even get the Parks and Rec. You know, they did send us a letter of support, but we can't get them involved. I'm having a hard time getting Bob involved because we don't know if we can do it. You know, it's without the support of this council. So, I mean, those would be the next steps, and they're all stumbling blocks. I agree. We
Yeah.
may not be able to work out something else.
well,
That's why.
this is kind of a circular argument, because you can't do something until you get commitment. We can't commit until we have answers. So, or at least I can't speak for anyone else. You know, traffic considerations, parking considerations, you know, that's a great little video there of what might be the footprint. You know, we have pressures, I see Witch's Hat is over here. You know, their circumstances, and they're having a big event, and a parking lot like this might end up availing itself to having some kind of support for things outside of the footprint of the park. But if it does that, and we have an event that's going on in the park, then that gets more complicated. We've got baseball fields that are already maxing out essentially the footprint of all the parking areas in existence right now. If you have an event at the Witch's Hat, the Historic Village, I should say, you know, I mean, it makes it that much more difficult to end up supporting all that stuff. You've suggested that this location is without touching the footprint of the baseball fields and the sled hill. I mean, I like the idea that, you know, we just built the fields and all that stuff, but if you could get much higher utilization out of the footprint of our park space by reconfiguring the way that the place is set up, moving the hill, moving the ball fields, whatever, if that ended up producing a more effective and efficient way for all these activities to be conducted simultaneously, I'd like to know what the cost of that transition would be, because it might end up being well worth the effort.
We've learned the hard way that when we paid for the appraisal for that piece of property, we wasted that money. Because when we started looking at the overall cost of actually purchasing that property, and then, you know, from a private owner, the one at 10 Mile and
Vicksburg,
Vicksburg.
yeah.
So what we're doing is I agree, those are all great questions. that need to be answered. The problem is, before we want to start spending that money for the traffic study, to see what reconfiguring the park would look like, to address your concerns, we want to see if there's at least support there for us to do that. I don't want to be in a position where we come, the committee starts spending that, what's left of that 30,000, which is approximately, I think, 15,000 something, and just wasting it when we don't even know if there's support from the city to actually be looking at that site. Those are all steps we need to take, but right now, we've identified a parcel of land, the northeast corner of McCaddy Park, where Lyon Township seems to be on board and Green Oak Township seems to be on board. And before we start spending money to see if it's feasible, we're asking the council tonight to see if there's support for at least us to look at a conceptual design going forward, addressing those concerns. Believe me, traffic's a big issue.
Well,
We know that.
absolutely.
We know that.
And it's an easy thing to commit. If you're the outside entity, you're getting land, someone else's land, well, that's a pretty easy thing to say, I'm for it.
I
So,
totally understand, but
so-
I just want to be this whole committee is sitting there and we're like,
I know
we
it.
feel like
It's a
we're spinning
terrible
our
bind.
wheels
I get that.
sometimes. And it'd be nice to at least, have support saying, in theory, let's see if we can work on it and do it and see if there's those hurdles we can overcome. If
Well, my
not,
biggest concern about that theory is, okay, so we obligate that location. How long until this thing either sinks or swims, where we can't end up making any amendments in McCaddy Park for fear that it'll end up being encroaching on the surface that this area is going to be playing in?
November 6, 2000, when's the election in November? November
First Tuesday.
first Tuesday, that following Wednesday. If it doesn't pass, we'll know for sure. I mean, it's a situation.
You can get all the ducks in a row by then?
Well, that's why we gave us a year and a half. I mean, we've come to the point now where once we identify it, then we could start looking at whether or not it's feasible from a financial point of view.
Well, you had that concern about road access. There was a site in Lyon Township that you had made reference to. I don't recall which one it was. No, I thought it was off a 9 Mile or something.
Oh, it's southeast corner of 9 in Griswold.
Yeah, isn't that the one you said the road access was a concern? Oh, no, I guess it was that 11 Mile one. You're right. I'm sorry.
You would have to add additional lanes of traffic for turn lanes and a light at that intersection.
Okay, yeah, it was 11 Mile, right. So, I mean, that one generates a road traffic issue. Do you have have you guys got any kind of projections about what trips per day are likely to end up going to this?
We don't want to spend any more
Well,
money.
that's-
No, but Glenn, understand our position. We're an advisory committee. We have $15,000 left of the 30,000. I don't want to have to come back to this council and say I need more money. If we have at least support from this council to look at this, it's not to say that it's going to work. We could come back and have a traffic study saying, hey, even though we paved Griswold between 8 and 10, there's just no way. Or then when we reconfigured the parking areas, it's taking up too much space in McCaddy Park. Those are things we need to look at, and those are things that we have to get the city planner involved with, and we have to get Bob involved with. And at some point, there's a lot of stuff we have to do, but the issue is, can we do it? I don't want to have to waste money again and then find out that the council, and doesn't really support the idea of going forward, and we wasted all this money. We could be in a position 5 months from now saying, yes, we had support of the council, we started doing it, and then guess what? You're right, traffic is just, there's no way. But at least we had the support or the permission to do it. Right now, we're an advisory council, and it's kind of like we're in that gray area of what we're supposed to be doing. Now it's time to get the municipalities involved and say, can we do it? At least look at it conceptually. That's where we're at. I mean, you're right. It could turn out that it's wrong, it won't work, at least we'll know. But at least we had support going forward, so we can contact city people. We can look at, what are we gonna do with the land? How are we gonna do that? I know we spent $450,000 for those 2 parcels. How are we gonna work out that deal? But right now, there's nobody on behalf of the city that could make recommendations to us based on negotiations because we're not there. I mean, that could be a stumbling block. We don't know. What we're asking for is the initial support to at least look at those questions. And that's why we're here.
Are you
I'm
done?
all set, yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Has anybody looked at the deed to see if there's any restrictions when the gentleman gave us that property?
It's a general warranty deed, I think. I have a copy of it.
Is there any restrictions on it on what we can do with that property?
I don't believe I saw any, but I do have a copy of the deed.
Because that would be free.
Patty dedicated it for park usage.
But is park usage outdoor park usage, or is park usage, is a community center considered a park?
Recreational.
I mean, we'll find out. I mean, I don't want to
No,
speak on.
I just, that's something you could do for free.
Oh, no, I have the warranty, but again, if I send it to Tim to confirm it, who's paying for it? Is the advisory committee paying for it, or is the city paying for it? That's stuff we have to look
Yeah,
at.
we're not paying for it.
Exactly, but I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's where we're at right now. I mean, I don't want to sit here and try to dedicate resources for a conceptual design at a specific location unless I have support of this council. Because I don't want to go down that path if I don't, even if we did all this stuff and there's no support from the council, what's the point?
Well, I understand your buying, but I'm not going to commit without having a heck of a lot more information that's solid than what we've got from this presentation. This is essentially what's been talked the last 2 or 3 years. And I mean, everybody loves the idea.
Well, we're here at this point, Glenn. We're at a point now where we're asking to meet with the city to start carrying on some serious discussions about this parcel of land, okay? That's where we're here. This is the stepping stone we're at right now. We would like to know what the city's gonna charge for it. I don't know. I'd like to know, okay, if we put this size facility here, what's gonna cost for utility tap-ins? I don't know. But I'm not gonna do all this information, or do all this work if I don't have the support of this council to at least ask those questions. And that's where I'm at, because we have spent, I don't know how many hours on this project. And it gets to the point where you feel like you're spinning your wheels, because there's all this talk, and we're doing all this talking, but now we're at a point where we can actually start looking at hard figures. Believe me, for 2 years, the committee fought among ourselves trying to decide a location. And the fact that we're finally in agreement on a location is unbelievable. When you have representatives from Green Oak Township and Lyon Township and, South Lyon saying, hey, look, this looks like the best spot. But we need to go the next step, and I don't want to waste our time if the council's not going to support us at least going to that next step. Because like I said, there's 1,000 hurdles we have to overcome, and there's one huge hurdle about financing we have to overcome. And if any one of these 3 communities says no,
Right.
it's done deal. It's over. But at least we'd like to get to that step.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a few comments, and before I speak, I do want to say that after I'm done, it'd be nice, or after everybody's done with their comments, to allow people from the public to give their input. I think that's appropriate, which it sounds like that's willing to do that, so that's great. The numbers that I wrote down from the fitness center or what are we calling this, community center, is 15 million plus an additional 5 million for some operating expenses, miscellaneous, but basically essentially 20 million. My question is a little bit more specifically. I also wrote down that there's a lot of costs they're not accounted for. For example, cost for any traffic updates, traffic studies, engineering fees, tap-in fees, cost to move the play area. And I remember hearing that the splash pad actually was not included in the first proposal, but maybe since then it's been in the medium size. I don't know. Also, the cost of the homes, et cetera. I mean, there's a lot that goes on and on. Do we have a general ballpark in addition to, let's say, the 20 million, what that would be?
This committee cannot get to that next step until we know if we have this location to at least work with. So I understand all your financial concerns, and that's the next hurdle that we would bring to the committee. But no, seriously, I mean, how can we discuss costs, you know, infrastructure costs, if we don't know where we're gonna put it? That's why we're making the recommendation to at least consider the northeast corner of McCaddy Park so that we can answer all those questions and have concrete numbers. I don't want to sit here and guess and tell you these figures that we have until we know what the entire project is going to cost. And we have no idea what the entire project is going to cost, and I can't answer all those questions because we don't know where it's going to go. That's why we're here. We're trying to focus on where it's going to go, and those are all hurdles that we have to overcome going down the road. Right now, we're just trying to say, look, is McCaddy Park okay? Can we look at it? Can we start running numbers on McCaddy Park? That's it. I mean, I will give you every number you want. This committee will come in front of you as many times as you want us to do and present numbers, but until we pick a location, it's hard to guess what it's going to cost.
So where I'm at, I can't speak for everybody else, but my comfort level just is not, I'm just a little bit uncomfortable with what we're voting on today. And what we're voting on is actually a resolution saying that McCaddy Park is the designated spot. And I get that all the other spots have been evaluated, but I'm just not sold that this is the right spot, and it makes me a little uncomfortable to have such a definite resolution. I would more prefer to have a discussion like this without actually making it so official, I guess is the word you can use. So I'm just not at a level right now where I'd be willing to turn over the keys to McCaddy today.
We're not asking for the keys. We're not even asking for anything to do with the keys. What we're asking for is, can we proceed with a conceptual design and a cost estimate for a rec center at McCaddy Park? The resolution that's been presented, you could put any limitations you want on it. You can do anything you want.
Why can't you just have a conceptual agreement
That's
and
fine.
move forward?
Because I want to be able to go to Lyon Township, and I want to be able to go to Green Oak Township and say, we brought this in front of the South Lyon City Council, and there is support from the council to at least look at a conceptual design in McCaddy Park. If I can't even take that to Lyon Township or McCaddy, or to Green Oak Township from my own council, then what's the point of asking them to see if there's, they're in agreement or they're in support of this?
Well, they've got no skin in the game, so
They're
why-
paying for a third of it. Their residents, right now, Lyon Township's taxable value is more than ours and Green Oak's combined, and throw another third on top of that.
I know, but they have no skin in the game except for the $10,000 original.
No, that's not true, because all these expenses to get to that conceptual design is coming from the money that the three communities have given towards this
$30,000.
project. Right. I'm saying, they have 10,000 in, we have 10,000 into it, and Green Oak Township has 10,000 into it. If you guys don't want us to look at McCaddy Park, then I'm not gonna go to Lyon Township, and I'm not gonna go to Green Oak Township saying, hey, this is a spot, but South Lyon won't do it. We're not saying this is going to work at McCaddy Park. We're just saying, give us the opportunity to see if it will work.
Didn't you already get conceptual drawings?
Yeah,
And you already got a conceptual price?
yeah, I just gave you the
Okay,
numbers.
so how is picking a
Infrastructure.
site gonna give you
Infras-
more?
Infrastructure. I have no
It's-
idea what the
So
tapping.
it's not gonna give you another conceptual design, it's gonna give you,
Okay.
like, if it fits on it, I mean, this is what I do for a living. If the building fits on the property, then you don't need another conceptual design.
We need to know infrastructure costs. If we're gonna put it at 11 Mile Milford, I need to know how much it's gonna cost to widen the road, to put in the road improvements the Oakland County Road Commission is gonna require at that, location.
So you're looking for that
Infrastructure. but I-
infrastructure conceptual designs. You don't need a building conceptual design anymore.
Right, we have
And
that.
just the building conceptual design, you have a conceptual price for that.
Yes, we do.
And that's already at the top end of your budget without doing any infrastructure.
No, the building itself, well, it's probably around 25, 26 million.
Okay, I didn't know what the top, she said it was at the top end. I don't know what the top end was.
Top end includes having money left over so that we can cover any operational shortfalls. We don't wanna- I don't know how many facilities have built for the full amount and they can't fund it.
Right, so what is your top end?
You let me look at the infrastructure costs and factor that in, I will tell you.
Well, if I could add,
To have, no,
Sorry.
I'm still talking. You have to have, this is as high as we can go. We can only go to 30 million. You have to have that idea in your mind.
That's a
You
function
have
of
to
a
have it.
millage thing.
And if you have already used 25 million of it and you haven't done infrastructure, think about that.
The infrastructure, a lot of the costs, go ahead, Scott. Yeah.
With the infrastructure and the site work, we're carrying a lump sum, an allowance, and then a contingency on top of that. So until that site plan gets pretty conceptually engineered, we don't have an accurate number.
Right, but you already have a conceptual, pretty good guess on the building.
Yes,
Okay, and
that's
how
correct.
much money do you have left over?
I don't have that. But we carried, in that building cost, we're carrying the allowance for all the site work and utility work.
But see, this was my biggest fear, is that we're asking to look at,
Thanks, Scott.
seriously, this was our biggest fear. We're gonna come here tonight asking to at least look at McCaddy Park, and now the focus is gonna turn from this to numbers. Can we just try to agree on a location so that the next time we're before you, we can have a breakdown of every number you want? I mean, we will have conceptual, design costs, we will have all that, we'll have the operational costs, we'll have the infrastructure costs, what the tapping is gonna be. And again, one of those hurdles that we have to overcome, we may add all this stuff up even with a city-owned property with utilities right there and say we can't do it. But I just don't wanna spend the money of our committee until we get to that point. You know, that I have some support from this council to at least look at McCaddy Park.
I'm all set, Joe,
Oh.
thanks.
and Aaron, I apologize for
No,
interrupting.
you didn't, I just wanted to, I was on the roll, I wanted to get that out, thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I certainly think it's appropriate to talk about cost. I mean, this is a major project that's going to be anywhere from 30 million plus. So to not have that discussion today in front of everybody here, I would say is a disservice. With that being said, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts, but I definitely think that the cost should not be discredited. And I'm
It's
sorry.
not, guys. It's not being discredited. This cost is, the cost, we stopped, we took a hiatus when the cost became prohibitive. Now we're back, taxable values are up. We just want to see if the cost will be prohibitive if we use McCaddy Park, even if
Cost
we
isn't
use.
the only concern that I've got. I mean,
Right, no,
traffic,
there's
the
a
impact,
ton.
the
There's
impact
a-
on the
It's
surrounding
the
community, I mean,
It's the
gosh,
infrastructure,
yeah.
But we want to be able to look at the, you know, next time we're here, say, look, thank you for your support at McCaddy Park. We looked at the traffic studies. We looked at the costs involved, and you know what? Even using that city-owned property, we can't do it.
What's your first backup location?
Right now, based with conversations with Lyon Township and Green Oak, there really isn't one. Because like I said, it's taken us 2 years to get to this point.
It's hard to find that sweet spot. I just don't know that this is it.
Well, I don't know where else they're going to get it. They've worked at this for 3 years, and we're talking about providing a stepping stone to get them up to the next step. It doesn't commit that we lose our park over it. It gives them grounds to move on from this point. Originally, by the way, Aaron, the property you were worried about as being as the gifted property, actually, the area they're talking about using is purchased property by the city. That was the Boyce property
Sleigh
and
bog
the
property. I mean,
Nettles
Nettles, yeah. Excuse me.
property that's was added much later after the park originally went in. So that's not an issue there at all. I see where they're coming from. They need a stepping stone. And I'm one would say that this could be a stepping stone. It's not going to tear down the kiddie park next week. It's not going to take out the trees. It's not going to do anything for well over a year and a half, if anything. And then it still has to be approved by the people, the townships. It has to be, all this has to be approved. And then it's, to me, from what I saw in the presentation, it fits we're a town that's decaying, we know that. It's just the times, we've got some lazy landlords that don't want to do anything, and it would really be an asset to the community. But, like they're saying, the road study may prove it isn't going to be feasible. As we know, the road backs up to 6 Mile now in the evening. If anybody's been dealing with that, we all know how bad that is. And that'll be the issue that stops it to begin with. I didn't quite catch the part about why Volunteer Park was totally out of the picture, except that one of the townships didn't want to go there. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be, let's put it this way, when you're working with a party of three, and you have to all agree, when one party doesn't agree, based on location, and when we looked at the SEMCOG population growth, most of their population growth is going to be on 10 Mile, east of Pontiac Trail, and we've seen it. I mean, if anyone's driven down 10 Mile lately, I mean, all the subdivisions going up, and that's what they're focusing on too.
And that's quickly going to be growing all the way down to
And then
8 Mile.
traffic could be an issue. I mean, there's
Yes.
all kinds of traffic issues.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Harvey, you should speak.
I don't think this is the first bite of the apple that we're going to have. This is a opportunity for these folks to continue their research that they've been doing now for 3 years. And I know just from our conversations that this is a significant body of work just getting to here. I'm afraid that if we don't resolve this here today, that the whole thing stops. And whatever work has been accomplished is for naught. So I think we could support this resolution. I can support this resolution certainly to continue the process. If it leads to a great-looking community center in the center of town, that'd be great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we'll have more opportunity to be heard on the topic, both as a council and as individual citizens in the vote. So my recommendation is that we continue the process. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I speak?
Yes.
It seems that several members of the council are uncomfortable with the wording of the resolution and the fact that it perhaps gives the Oversight Committee more control over the land than they would like, and that there's not enough hard numbers to back it up. A possible solution to that, and I would defer this to the city attorney, is rather than passing a resolution, would be for the council to pass a motion in support of the Oversight Committee continuing to use this site as their primary location for continuing all of their contingency work, looking at the overall costs for the project, and then bring that back to the council in some sort of a resolution form. That way, we're not handing over control of the park to anyone. The council has made a decision that they are recommending perhaps supporting this location for the Oversight Committee to continue to move forward with, knowing that there are a lot of hurdles that the committee has to jump through before the site is determined as a definite location for the three communities to vote on.
They can jump through those hurdles without our motion.
I don't believe the Oversight Committee feels that they have that authority to do so, because it is city-owned land, and it's three jurisdictions, and that is why they brought this before you.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, Joe.
I'd like to just go back a little bit ways to the locations, and just specifically 11 Mile Milford and Volunteer Park. I've attended, I don't know how many of these meetings, maybe 5 at least, and at every single meeting, almost, if not every single meeting, the reason why 11 Mile Milford Road was ruled out was because of specifically the utility hookup fees. Okay, we were told that was too much money. We're told it's in the millions. I have not seen any data to support that, but that's what we're told. But that's not my point. My point is, we're told that it's a cost problem. Now, when I attended one of these meetings, the Recreation Oversight Board, we were told that if the price goes over $20 million, that this whole project would be scrapped. That was your words, correct, Mike? Well, okay. You don't have to answer it, but then,
No, I will. I'll answer it. That was based on figures back in 2012, when we just got the updated taxable value for Lyon Township, and I got the numbers I have them in my briefcase if you want to see them. The taxable value went up from Lyon Township, like you would not believe, it went up to $918 million, which was a significant increase, which increased the amount of money then a 1 millage would generate, which obviously increased our costs. But I didn't have those numbers back when I made that comment. Those were based on numbers we had from 2012, 2011, which was a scary proposition at that time.
so my point is that before, the number was capped at 20 million, and then now all of a sudden, the taxable values come in, and it's at 30 million.
Apparently, you didn't hear my explanation, but that's
Well,
okay.
so my point is that with an extra $10 million, it sounds like maybe there's some money in there to play with these issues, and deal with these issues such as utility hookups or,
Well, Joe, when
Parking,
SEV goes up, millage generated from that SEV goes up.
yeah, absolutely. And I
So-
understand, but what I'm saying though is, and then if the issue is really the money, it sounds like there's a little bit more money to play with for those sites. But right now, what I'm being told is that Volunteer Park and 11 Mile Milford, Lyon Township doesn't want it.
How many schools are near 11 Mile and Milford Road?
Well,
There's going to be one new one coming in. This site is within walking distance of 6 school buildings, or 5, let me think. The high school, Bartlett, Sayre, and the 2 middle schools. That's 5. Within easy walking distance. Volunteer Park is too. That's what I've been pushing that too, but either near here, this doesn't commit us. It just gives them that stepping stone. They need a stepping stone. And it does not commit that we lose McCaddy Park.
Can I ask you one more question? I'm sorry, I misplaced your name, I'm sorry. Amy. What did you mean when you said that these sites were private and so they were not considered? Is that because the people didn't want to sell them? Or
No,
what?
they didn't want to buy them, and if it didn't work out, then they're strapped with a
Oh,
property.
okay, so you,
Didn't want to be stuck with purchasing a parcel of land. Actually, the Slara would have to be purchasing a parcel of land. And if this went up to public vote and it was turned down, Slara would be stuck with a parcel of land that was unusable, that they would have no means to pay for.
but couldn't you still base your conceptual study off of a parcel of land?
Certainly, and you could contractually obligate the property. I mean, there's all kinds of vehicles that could be used, so.
Right.
But that was your roadblock, that's what your thoughts were when you did that roadblock. You didn't, you were thinking of purchasing the land first.
Or at least putting an option on it.
Okay, I just wanted to understand that. Thank you, Amy.
The other concern outside of the costs and all the inherent things with the property itself is the impact on downtown. There's pluses and minuses to every adventure that takes place. I mean, granted, there'd be an awful lot more people coming into town, which if they open their wallets up at all of our restaurants and stores and all that kind of stuff, all the businesses would be tickled to death. If it becomes so onerous to get through town because of the weight of traffic, that kind of goes away. I mean, it's it negates that, that potential. So, I mean, it's just trying to strike that balance of whether or not this is going to end up being an aggregate plus, or if it's going to have a negative impact on the general fare of town.
Right, those are all legitimate concerns, and believe me, those are things that we will look at. I mean, obviously, if it's a traffic jam in downtown South Lyon, 24 hours a day, just to use that for a single example, then it's not gonna be feasible, and then the location's not gonna work.
Yeah.
But that's why, we just wanna see if we can go to that next step and not waste money and time without the support of at least going to the next step.
Well, I'm kind of stuck here. There's something about the language of this thing that I really,
Oh, change it.
We've
I would
already
like
talked
to end
about
up
scrapping
I
that.
mean, conceptually, I like the idea of of obligating this to your study, your further study and gathering of information. I just don't want the baggage of some outside entity having oversight or command of our real estate. So
That's already been determined that we are not going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, those are issues that will be addressed if we go to that next step. I mean, Glenn, you're right. If it gets to the point where, you know, we can't work a deal out on the land or whatever, that's one of the hurdles that we couldn't overcome, you know, case closed. But again, we'd like to get to that at least next hurdle to see if we can try to overcome that.
I don't want to try to micromanage this thing that you guys have been involved in for so many years, but it's hard to make a commitment to this without having a better understanding of what the alternative locations, just so that the project doesn't blow up at this point if this doesn't move forward, that's all.
And I can give you an alternative one. You can go back to Dixboro and reconsider that one, because he called me today, the owner, he's ready to negotiate. He asked me that I present that.
I'd be more comfortable if we made a motion like Lynn suggested.
Jesus.
That's fine.
I just want to be able to go to
10 mile Dixboro, you said?
Yes, the 10-acre parcel that already has the pavement and the,
Well, I think it's worth the
Utilities in there.
conversation. If,
I like to have
but like I'm saying, that can be your Plan B.
It could be Plan B.
wow.
I mean, if Plan A doesn't work, Plan B.
That's what I'm saying, at least you got a Plan B.
Right. Well, I mean, we're just asking to see if Plan A will work. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Do you want to open up the comment? Public?
Well,
We're still discussing.
there's so many, all the problems that had been with that Dixboro location, if they were solved by the notion of you were given free rein of the footprint that you needed over there, you still have the access to utilities, you still have proximity to the 5 schools, the walkable trails. I mean, all these assets that had been enumerated as the benefits of McCaddy are still enjoyed over there. So without choking off traffic downtown, I guess if that's a viable consideration,
Well, it's a
does that
viable
change your calculus at all?
for B.
We're to the point now where we would like to start crossing off locations that we've recommended. We've spent a lot of time on McCaddy Park. If it doesn't work, then if he's negotiable, you know, that's another thing. I mean, okay, he's negotiable, but
And he
again,
also said he'll run a sidewalk from it all the way to Hagedorn.
wow.
Sounds
Well,
like,
I mean,
He's getting up there, and they're looking at doing different things with the rest of their lives, and they'd like to get rid of
but
that
again,
property.
I mean, no offense, that sounds like a great idea, but again, that's something that we would have to consider purchasing on top of.
Right, but then again, that can be a contingency thing. He's been sitting on that for 15 years now.
sounds like it should be Plan A, not B.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
Well, now, wait a second, Mike. Now, you say it's something that would have to be purchased. So, I mean, if,
No, it's just taking more money away from what we can
well, I
put
know,
in.
but I mean, so that you're going to end up using the city's money essentially for paying us back?
Yeah, you have to buy the McCaddy part.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, cripe, I'd like to see us made whole a lot sooner than 20 years prorated service charges.
We're going to be made whole on November of 2016, I think. Either way, we're going to know where we're going. And by then, the community will have grown that much more. There's that many more people here to use it. There's that many more people here to pay for it. I think it's something that I'm with the committee. We put them together, helped put them together 3 years ago, and they deserve a chance to progress for the next step.
The problem with this committee is there's so many highs and lows that just when you think you're making progress, you take one step forward, you end up taking 2 steps back. And we've been doing this for 3 years, and now that we finally have 3 communities agreeing in principle, well, at least 2, hopefully 3, on the location that we're looking at now, you know, you're right, there could be so many other issues, but at least we're together on one, you know, and that's why we're looking at
But
McCaddy
you've
Park.
taken these other ones off the table. That's the problem. You know, if you take them off the table, then
Glenn, we've been told by Lyon Township representatives that it just is not feasible to build a center of this size in Lyon Township with what it's gonna cost for the utility fees.
okay, but
So that takes out Lyon
Dixboro
Township.
and 10 Mile location, that light industrial location.
I understand, but then when we met with him the first time, the only parcel he was willing to part
No,
with.
That's what he was just
Well,
asking
that's
now.
news to me
Yeah,
today.
that's what I mean. When,
That's news to me
that's the
today.
rub, is that, you know, just as the millage and SEV escalation has changed the calculus on what kind of revenues can be generated, when a circumstance like that presents itself, if that's a viable location, if this guy takes the restrictions that had nixed it for you originally off, that might end up ultimately making a great deal more sense.
But then I have to go back and see if we can get approval from the 2 other communities on that site.
I get that.
You know, that's,
That additional mile of driving,
I'll
you
tell you
know.
what, I know, that additional year that it's gonna take us to try to, I mean, let's put it this way, Glenn. We meet once a month trying to get this done, and it's taken us 2 years to get to this point. To this point.
I don't
mean, we
want,
didn't
I
try
don't
to-
want you squandering your time. I know how much everybody cherishes their time. That's very important to me as well. At the same time, we've got an asset right now that we could end up growing just more lavish park, even if it were simple pasture. I mean, passive land with some trees on it that people enjoyed. And this thing went into that Dixboro location, accomplished, then we get the best of both worlds. We have all the attributes of this community center, plus we get an enhanced location in our park. So,
I agree, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you.
I know, I don't want to be this, like, I'm not trying to be negative about this. I'm trying to maximize what the city's benefit from this activity is going to end up being.
In lieu of Mayor Wallace's news, I make a motion that we table this discussion until the Rec Center Committee has time to look at the Dixboro site.
Second.
Now, further discussion?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to ask you guys, do you think that that's? Do you guys think you could roll with that and look into that?
Everybody who's having the opinion that Site B is an option, I'd love to see them at one of the committee meetings to dedicate some of their time to looking into it.
Well, that may not happen, so it's going to be on your back still. Will you
He's
have
ready
a
to
willingness to
meet-
pursue
He's ready to
that?
meet tomorrow.
The person that owned that land, are they willing to meet with us within the next 2 weeks before the next city council
Absolutely.
meeting? So it stops any progress that we have going forward right now until we hear from him. So he's gonna be available, make himself available to us next.
I have his phone number right here.
If you have quick dialogue and it seems as though it's going to be prohibitive, you come back to the next meeting?
Might not be the same thing he says to us, I just wanna.
Oh,
Precisely.
he will.
So
I've
if we
known
can have
Chuck for
dialogue in the
50
next 2
years.
weeks, I'm more than willing, I can't speak for the rest of the committee, but I'm more than willing to talk to
Ready
him about
to
that.
get rid of it.
But what happens if he comes in, see, this is the problem we're having as an advisory committee. We have to advise the 3 communities that we can't even negotiate a purchase price for the sale of this land because we don't have the authority. So the question then becomes.
But you can make an ask.
Well, I can ask, right, we
Yeah.
can ask and say, what if he comes back at $500 or $600,000 for or $1 million when we were discussing it the first time, when he wanted the whole parcel? I mean, that's the problem we're having.
Well, I mean, our property is $500,000. I don't want to give away $5,000 or $500,000 worth of dirt.
You can work with Ted, Mike.
I'll work with him.
There you go. Work with Ted.
Okay, but again, I have to sell this to 2 other communities. This committee has to go up and say, okay, we have a offer of X amount of dollars, okay?
And then if it doesn't pan out, then Plan B just doesn't pan out. There's nothing, no blood drawn. I mean, but we give it a shot.
This thing isn't going to blow up by having 2 weeks' worth of discussions till our next meeting, so.
Right.
Right, but it's 2 weeks of discussions that this committee now has to make time for in the next 2 weeks to sit down, meet with him,
The
try to come
alternative
up
is
with
a lot
numbers.
worse, Mike, because it's over then.
No, you're right. The alternative is if this council says no, then we can go home tonight knowing that we tried. You know, that's the bottom line. We spent 3 years trying to get this through. We finally get 2 other communities to agree on a location within our city on a parcel that we own. And if this city says no, then we can go home holding our heads up high and say, you know what, we gave it a try. That's the alternative. See, because it's not your time, it's our time that now has to sit down, plan our time. I'm going to be on vacation all next week, and now I've got to sit down and try to come up with a meeting with Chuck and try to work out what's he asking for and how much is he willing to sell. Then we have to get somebody in there to see what's going to cost, you know, to try to make improvements on that
Well,
land.
you guys had an investigation on that property already.
We did an
so-
appraisal, and I can tell you right now, our appraisal was a lot less than what I'm asking for at the time. So, well, it's gonna be interesting to see.
But I mean, you're not going in there completely cold. You already have an understanding of the property, that's all.
I
Right.
didn't table it for a specific date. If you're gonna be on vacation, it could always be a little later. When I tabled it, I didn't table it in my motion for a specific date.
It's a very frustrating process, guys. It really is.
I'm with you.
Because we are volunteering all this time.
It's
trying to get this
frustrating
done.
to ask questions that are given these kind of amorphous answers as well. Things that are absolutely necessary to make decisions on. So I feel your pain. That's the nature of the beast.
Well, it really makes it worthwhile wasting our time trying to get to this point when we know that.
I don't
even
think
know
this
if we have
plan
the
has
support.
been wasted yet. It's not saying it has been wasted. It's just that it's a chance, one more chance at that B plan, just to make sure, and then
Well, not only
go
do we have
forward
to
after
deal with,
that.
I know, but not only we have to deal with Chuck, we also have to deal with Lyon Township and Green Oak Township to see if they're still agreeable to that parcel after we've just spent the last 6 months looking at McCaddy Park.
Were they not agreeable with it before?
They,
It borders Lyon Township property, it borders Green Oak property.
right,
And now, how does the impact of, if McCaddy goes away, are they willing to roll it up?
I don't know.
Yeah, see? I mean,
don't
if this
know.
is a viable
But
possibility,
Glenn, again, we have to ask, and we have to make the phone calls, and we have to get the meetings together, and we have to
well, you don't
sit down.
have to,
No,
but
no.
you do if you want this to go forward. That's the way it is.
Well, it's better that we try to get it done, because I don't want to be in a position where at least we didn't give it a shot. So I will do that, but I'm just hoping that if it doesn't work out, that the council will still consider Plan A at McCaddy Park.
Discussion. Okay. I see a few people that'd like to speak. Okay, we have guidelines for this. One, we ask you don't repeat what the first person said or second person said. Two, you'd like to please keep it at a couple minutes, because we have several people who want to speak, and we're willing to let you do that, but please follow those guidelines. And if I have to gavel you out, I will. And then the other thing is, you'll state your name and your address. Go ahead.
Good evening, Dean Whitcomb, 25885 McCrory in Lyon Township. Last time I was in front of you, I was on the committee to help expand the ball fields and the improvements at McCaddy. And thank you for your partnership, by the way, that I think has been a gem for the city. Maybe this is oversimplified, but the fact that the stars have aligned to the point where these 3 municipalities have agreed on one location is a minor miracle in itself, I think. I think the more simple question is if these stars continue to align, is this board philosophically like the idea of that building in McCaddy Park, losing the green, gaining a potential game-changing centerpiece? And I think, Mr. Mayor, you hit it out of the park with access, walking access to 6 schools. 10 in Dixboro is a little bit different than that. That's a game changer in terms of the youth of the community. And if the stars continue to align, is each council member agreeable to giving up that portion of McCaddy for that, I guess is the bigger picture question I'm not seeing answered here. And again, there's 20,000 stars that have to align, and they might not. But if they do, Councilman Rizzi, do you want a rec center at McCaddy Park?
I made it very clear, and I'll
Thank
still
you for
make
your
it
time.
clear.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next.
Mike Tullio, 549 Grayfield. Just a couple things I won't repeat. You had some of my stuff, Ted, so I won't repeat. Mr. Mayor, Ted, you almost had me there, but I'd like to know two things, really. Number one, we spent like 2 hours, you guys have spent 2 hours going back and forth about McCaddy and the viability of going forward with the study. And to me, there's a lot of finances and you want numbers and all this, and it seems pretty simple to me that all they're asking for is to just, and like the previous gentleman said, all the stars aligned, everyone agrees on it. All they're looking for is to move ahead and see what all this is going to cost so they can come back to you and tell you. It seems pretty simple to me, but at any rate, number two is that if you spend all that time going back and forth about McCaddy, and Ted, for some reason, you waited till the last 5 minutes to bring up that conversation you had about the other place, and then all of a sudden that's a completely viable, that's the best option.
The question was asked about B being available. Well, there is a B plan.
No, I'm assuming the call didn't just come in on your cell phone like 2 minutes ago, right, though? It was, okay.
It was this
Just wanted to
afternoon.
make sure.
This afternoon.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Carrie Jones. I live at 883 Hidden Creek. I appreciate all the work you guys have done in the presentation and the time you've spent. However, there's some things as I heard the presentation that just kind of like made me go, okay. First of all, I know you had selection criteria, which seems to be the only option for this place is in South Lyon. That utilities knocks out Green Oak, Lyon Township, those are out of it because of the lack of utilities. So that is one thing. It just seemed like it just automatically threw it into our town, which we would have benefit from, but we also take the hit in traffic, has been mentioned. I think I saw a conceptual drawing before. I'm not sold on it. I'm not sold on the location. I love the idea. I'm not sold on the location personally. Keep talking about walking to it. Well, who in Green Oak is going to walk to here?
The kids are going to school here.
I understand that, but still, somebody's got to come get them. Lyon Township, who's going to walk here from there on a Saturday? Who's going to walk here other than people in South Lyon? And these are just things that came to my mind, like, have we considered this? So if we build this in McCaddy Park, have we considered expansion? Say this thing takes off and it's awesome, and we don't have enough room, this is an ideal world, then we abandon it and build something somewhere else. I'm just thinking kind of out loud, but things that came to my mind, is there room for expansion should this thing really turn into something awesome? That park's pretty limited, and it's a great park. I hate to see us lose what we already have. Friends from out of town come and say they love the park. So, and not that I'm against change, but I think that's something to consider. We've already talked about the traffic, which is just ridiculous. Anyway, I think, perhaps you've done a ton of work. I appreciate that, but maybe it's not the right work. Maybe selection criteria needs to change. Something to consider. We already have parts of downtown that it's like, what were you thinking? I don't want this to become one of it.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
And for volunteers, if you're willing.
Ryan Lehrer, 716 Grand Court. After hearing the proposal of Site B, I think that I kind of agree with Glenn that, maybe we should table this until the Site B can be explored and determined. I think Aaron hit that on as well, and that maybe we can keep both worlds. We get the rec center and we keep McCaddy Park, and I think that's a more viable solution. You kill two birds with one stone.
Thank you, Ryan.
Hi, Jill Zamajan, 205 Maplewood. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for all of the hours. I know I'm on committees. It can be a pain in the butt. I am willing, by the way, to help out on any committees, so I will give you my name and number before I leave. The
Better
main
do
thing
it now
is,
because you have to say, did you say your address?
205
We're going to be here
Maplewood.
another 3 hours.
I've
Plenty of
lived
time
here
up
for
past 10 to
13
5.
years. I've seen Lyon Township, South Lyon, Green Oak grow, to the point of where as much as I love the downtown area, I avoid it. I don't go anywhere near it at this time. I think it's great that you guys are thinking of the idea that where you actually want the kids to walk there, it's half a mile, but the last lady that spoke, she made a great point. What is the percentage of people that will actually be walking, for one? Second of all, the location, how many people live that close? What about the Lyon Township people, also the Green Oak people? The traffic alone is a nightmare in that area. I just think other areas should be reconsidered. I know that you guys have tossed around the Levin and Milford Road area. I really think that should be looked at again. I think within the $30,000, correct, that's where we're looking at what the total cost will be. We're utilizing that $30,000.
That's just
So
a
instead of
study.
just
That's a study.
focusing on the one McCaddy area, I just think that it's just a consideration that, and I know, speaking with my neighbors as well, it's not a popular site, McCaddy. If you look on Facebook, you know what, people are pretty honest on Facebook. People make a lot of jokes about Facebook, but at the end of the day, people will actually tell you how they feel about it. There's one site, it's the What's Happening in South Lyon. There's almost 7,000 people on there, and there's one thread alone today, 250 comments, and the majority of them, I would say easily 90%, were saying not McCaddy. So it's just something, I guess as a taxpayer, I hope that you consider that, but I do support it. I think it's great. We want a healthier community. I run a fitness group myself. I think it would be awesome to see it, but just not that site. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Michael Rizzi. I live at 25550 Meadow Court in Lyon Township. I have a couple comments based on what I've heard earlier. First off, hey Mike, would you love a Lamborghini?
Pardon?
Would you love a Lamborghini? Seriously, would you love a Lamborghini?
Sure.
Would you love to pay for a Lamborghini?
No.
Okay, so based upon what you got from the surveys earlier, saying that 97% of the people want to have this, that's great. And only 3% don't. You didn't include anything about, do you want to pay for it? Is it worth it? Where do you want to put it? All of those things are things that are not included in there. I do like the concept of having this. I live in Lyon Township. I also was looking at how you did your map, and you said you see that there's a 2.5% plus growth growing down there. There's, on 10 Mile alone, 6 subdivisions going up. That's between even Curtis down to Napier. You're wanting to have basically Lyon Township pay for this and put it in South Lyon. All of the things that you said that you wanted to have, the reasons why you picked it, was because it benefited South Lyon the most, not Lyon Township, who you're putting it on to pay for it. So it should be in Lyon Township. It's a wonderful idea, and if I'm going to pay for it, great. I'm going to have the ability to use it, but all of the reasons why you said where it should be does not benefit me at all.
Just to comment on that, we do have 3 members. We have 2 Parks and Rec Commission members from Lyon Township on our committee.
Yeah.
And the treasurer.
Okay.
So, it wasn't just South Lyon saying it's going to be here or Green Oak saying it's going to be here.
Well,
This
they
is
also said, hey, you guys can have it because you can have the problems, right?
No.
Yeah? There's the problems of whatever it has to be if it's in the city. If it's in Lyon Township, what happens there? What if someone falls in the parking lot?
That's all separate from that.
But that's the location issue. I just think it should be by my house if I'm going to pay for it. And if all my neighbors are going to pay for it, it should be by my house.
But all your kids are going to our middle schools. That's the thing. It's yeah.
Yeah, but it's based on
Proportionally.
millage.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Mike.
All right. Good afternoon. Travis Mueller, 605 Orchard Ridge, here in the city.
I just want to say everybody's done a great job, and I see a lot of heart and commitment here that went into this proposal. But having dealt with long-term projects like this before, the major costs aren't the upfront build cost. They're long-term maintenance, sustainment, renovations, remodelings, things like that, insurance. So I didn't see anything in the presentation, and God knows I'm not looking for numbers because I think both of our eyeballs might pop out of our heads if we see any more numbers. But just what's the plan for long-term income, fees, fees for residents, long-term millages? We've got three entities on board now. That's great. Divorces happen, they get ugly, and if it does, then it's right in the middle of our park, and then it's us. So I do appreciate everything that everybody's doing, but I don't think it's right for us at this time. Thank you.
Kirk Irvin, 738 West Hills. I'd like to say thank you to the committee for all the work they've done. It's a lot of work. I guess I'm a little bit concerned with hearing a presentation, an overview presentation to a committee who's done a lot of work. They've put their blood, sweat, and tears into this, and they give a 20-minute presentation. We hear one new piece of information, and all of a sudden we're going a completely different direction. So to me, I think it makes sense to take the next step. One question I have is, right now we're looking at $15,000 that the committee has. My question is the committee looking for more money or just for approval to take the next step? Because some of the questions I heard, it almost seemed like we were asking for a final decision based on the information we have. So I think it's very important to consider what we're asking, what information we have, and where we are in the process. Thank you.
My name is Brian Mackey. I live at 12222 Wild Oak Circle. I will start out by thanking you guys for your donated time. This is a thankless job. I've been in several positions volunteer-wise that you spend. It's another full-time job, and I totally get that. I will remind you that by design, government is not supposed to move fast. I think if we look back over what's happened over the last few years, and I don't think there's anybody in this room that would disagree, that we probably should have slowed down a little bit and read Obamacare, because that seems like a train wreck right now. By design, this kind of thing is supposed to happen. You're supposed to have more communication with the community. How many people live in South Lyon? What's the resident? 12,000? 15?
Yeah.
I'm not sure in the city. But when you split out these thirds, 998 people to get this thing moving doesn't seem like a good representation of the entire school district is what we're really talking about. Having said that, McCaddy Park, nothing has been mentioned of what a gem McCaddy Park is, the historical value. From what people really do think, from who I've talked to in the city and the township, they still think we're talking about a water pad here, guys. So the information's not out there enough in detail that this is an actual rec center with an indoor pool that would be positioned and hide McCaddy Park. If you look at the other communities where they've placed their rec centers and you compare them to other very vibrant, successful downtown areas, Plymouth still has Kellogg Park. That place is jam-packed all the time, day and night, all through winter. Northville's the same way. There's not a rec center in their gem that is on the outside of town. I really don't believe that between the three communities that they all agree that this is the best location. I would suspect that that's true in this room as well. My personal opinion is not McCaddy Park, because you're destroying it. It will be destroyed. Everything that's in that park, that picture, that won't look that way. The park will be shut down. You can't use a park during construction. There's liability issues there. So the community is going to lose that park for 2 years. Period. During construction. Volunteer, wide open. Much more accessible. 8 Mile, super fast, get right to it. If this is going to continue, I don't feel comfortable listening, and I did not get to read what the actual, what you're voting on, what the verbiage is, but obviously there's several people who don't like the verbiage, so I'm automatically not comfortable with that. If it grants you any kind of permission to move forward and grant you the control of the park, I would totally be against that, especially when I heard Mr. Glenn down here say, well, if we had to reconfigure it, the whole entire park to make it work better, that's a great idea. No, it's not. There's a lot of things that go on in that park that should stay. Those ball fields have been around since the late 1800s.
No.
18, I'm sorry.
1960s.
No, I believe there's a picture in somebody's house here in South Lyon that was dedicated, and it was, that one of those fields was being played on since like 1893, I think they said. So, and you know what, I'll send that to you. I'll get a picture of it and send it to you.
It's over at the 2 Mill area you're talking about.
It was the original,
2 Mill area.
just behind the park,
Because the high school used to be over in that area.
over behind the park. Okay.
I wouldn't be willing to leave something
There was,
that wasn't as efficient as it could be because someone played ball there 100 years ago. So
it's just
I'd be all
that
right
it's
with
part of the community, that it would be,
We'll have another ball field. If it's moved 100 feet down the road, that'll still have kids play ball on it. So.
Okay, that's fine. And could you wrap it, please?
yep. So my opinion on that would be, in the middle of town would be horrible. Volunteer seems to be an area where it would grow, and then have all three communities have access, not just in a distance, but in a better accessible point, because it's a much quicker route to get to. Thank you.
My name's Chris Shecker. I live at 59878 Mulberry Circle in Lyon Township. I would like to let you guys know that I have been to a number of these meetings. Mr. Kramer knows who I am. At these meetings, there hasn't been a lot of people showing up, and that's fine. But at all three of at these meetings I go to, I ask 3 standard questions every time. I'm sure that the ladies here are pretty sick of my questions by now. They're laughing because they know what they are. The first is, I always ask, who have you spoke to about privatization? That way the tax doesn't fall on the burden of the taxpayer. I've been told many different answers. Nothing's came forth, though. The next question I always ask is what about other locations that you looked at? I've been told many things. Tap-ins are too high. We've looked at this, we looked at that. The third question that I've talked about it with them is how much is this going to cost before you pull the plug on it? Here's where the sticking points start. Back in February, I was told it's $17.3 million, conferring to your numbers, sir, that you mentioned. At the following month's meeting, I was told $20 million. That included reserves. Now we're up to $30 million. Touching on your point, when does the plug get pulled before we say enough's enough? The budget's just, it's not in the budget. In fact, at one of the meetings, the township treasurer from Lyon Township said to Mr. Kramer, point blank, we need to pull the plug on this. Reason for it is we don't have it right now. We cannot sustain it right now due to cost.
I beg to differ with that.
She did not say that.
She did not say that.
I have witnesses that were there.
He said maybe it is not time. Maybe
Correct.
we're just not big enough.
Correct. Okay, stand corrected, sorry.
And that's why she's supporting this still today.
Well, I'm just repeating what she said. I
that's
was
fine.
there in the room.
My point is that communication's been limited, both with the communities and with the board itself, with the people that are showing up and want to work. I told Mike Kramer and the people that are running this, I would volunteer to do this from day one. I've never been called. Second,
Well, we can't put you on Lyon Township. That's Lyon Township.
I said I would work with your board.
Well, our board is made up of delegates that were chosen by each community. So, I mean, I can't put you.
I'm
on
more
the
than willing to walk and do anything you need, Mike, anything. I've made that crystal clear. You don't got to put me in position. You need somebody to run to the bank, call me.
Huh, wish we had money. About 26
Next.
million.
Real quick, my point is that the conversation, as I said, has been very limited. Now, a lot of people in my community still don't understand and know what this is all about. Secondly, the message I keep getting from the board, especially from Mike, is pass now, worry later. It's not a concept that we can afford to take.
Sorry, what was that concept?
Pass now and pay later.
What do you mean pass ask now?
You back in February when I asked about privatization, back in January when I asked about different locations, your answer to me always was, McCaddy's the way to go, it has to be the way to go.
No, sir.
That was not, Mike?
I understand.
Okay, I've asked these questions. They were asked in front of people. They've been asked, they laughed when I said I was gonna ask these questions to you.
That's fine. I thought we've explained it to you about 4 times, but that's okay.
Well, your answer changes all 4 times, like
No, it's pretty
typical
much the same.
politic answers that you give.
Okay.
All right, you're getting running out of your own time.
I'm for a park, but I'm not for my taxes going up. Those numbers that were represented to you for this budget and everything else are misrepresented. Any number can be manipulated to what you want it to be used for. I would just ask you as the council people and mayor to just be more alert, aware of where the cognizance of the money's coming from with the taxpayers, not just one township, but us funding this as a tri-community park. We're going to lose a lot with McCaddy. Maybe we'll gain, maybe we won't with this park, but it's a risk that I personally do not see taking a chance on. The other locations mentioned would be more than adequate, I think, to adopt this idea. Thank you for your time.
My name's Eric Stidham at 20908 Oak Tree Drive. I grew up in Canton and watched that go from Ford Road was a 2-lane road, and now it is unlivable out there. Anybody that's driven down Ford Road knows that. I'm watching the same thing happen on Pontiac Trail. Anybody that drives home at rush hour knows that the traffic stops at 6 Mile or stops at 7 Mile, and you're sitting bumper to bumper all the way to 9 Mile. You're going to throw a community center where, let's say all those high school kids or middle school kids do walk to that center. You're going to throw a giant building, all those kids come there, mom and dad have to come and pick them up. You can never get open space back. Ford Road is one giant strip mall, and you can never get that space back. My kids go to McCaddy almost daily when they're not in school. I would absolutely hate to see 2 years to 3 years of construction take that park away from them right now. You're talking about $20 million earlier, Mike, was the original cap on the project. But then all of a sudden, property values started going back up. And now we're up to $30 million just for the building itself, I believe. I don't know the exact figure. What happens if property values go back down? You're going to increase people's taxes to pay for something like this. You're basically putting in a lifetime fitness on the backs of the taxpayers and asking us to pay for that. It doesn't make sense. McCaddy, as beautiful as it is, you will never get that space back. The traffic will get worse, and we're going to have to pay for it. Thank you.
I'm Stephanie Folk. My address is 237 Brookwood Drive. My question would be, what about looking at the cost comparisons of the 11 Mile in Milford, or the 10 in Dixboro, or McCaddy?
Okay, thank you.
Allegra Kranz, 347 Hampton Court, which is exactly right across the street from the Witch's Hat. Last Thursday, we had a party in the gazebo with the 2 baseball games going on. The people in the gazebo, the kids in the park. There was no parking left anywhere. They were parking on the grass. There wasn't a parking area. And that's just South Lyon. When 2 other, pieces come in, you're going to have all that other traffic there, and it's going to be simply impossible even to get out of my section of my condo, because it already is now.
Rose Walton, 365 Hampton Court. I'm a neighbor of Ms. Krantz. We also have the same concern of the traffic of the actual horseshoe that goes around McCaddy Park, not just for myself and our neighbors, but all around that entire horseshoe. Also, I have a question about the current infrastructure. Can the water handle it? Can the sewers handle it? What's it going to do to the neighbors? If you're going to have to put it all in anyways, let's look at the other sites
And I would agree with Ms. Volk. I'd like to see 3 presentations. Give us all 3. Give us the bottom line. Thank you.
Cindy Walton, 280 Gibson, 40 years resident here. My kids grew up in McCady Park. I have grandchildren that use it. Michael, do you have any children?
I do.
Do you want your child to be over there at that community center?
Yes.
Walking around, wait, excuse me, walking around, even if they're just using the sidewalk, with the amount of cars that you're proposing, they're going to be zipping in and out of that, trying to turn right, trying to turn left. No, 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 you're not going to. What I would like you to do is what the others have proposed. Come to us with 3 proposals, but what I want you to do in your committee is to take your passion for this project, which I hear loud and clear, but take it to the other facility sites and say,
We have.
no. I hear you today saying McCady Park, but now I want you to go say this property on Dixboro that you got the possibility of. That's what I want you to do. No to McCady Park. Thank you.
Gerald Spaller, 27A Wellington Drive. I went to the first meeting. I'm a senior, and I'm on a fixed income, and I don't know how many seniors want their taxes raised. I don't. I think that you're going to have to find some other way to finance this besides taxes. I mean, every time you turn around, they go up, and that's a pain in the butt, because you get a lot of grumbling. And that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
We have a motion in a second.
Can you repeat the motion, please?
My motion was in lieu of Mayor Ted Wallace's announcement that we table this discussion until another site can be looked at. It's the 10 in Dixboro site that Mayor Wallace referred to. Again, I have no timetable on my table.
And I seconded already.
Is your suggestion that they'll give us notice when they have information? And then
Yes.
it'll be back on the agenda? All right.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Aye.
Okay, it's
What was the final count? I didn't hear
1
that.
no.
1 no. Okay, thank you.
So we hope that things can progress. I know he's ready to talk, okay?
And I
Matter
want
when you get a
tell you,
chance to
I
get
think
to-
that this was actually very constructive. You know, the conceptual drawings and all that stuff, the whole package that you had presented was really informative and helpful. I mean, it showed the steps that you've gone through, it showed the assets that you were hoping to have in a location. So, I mean, I know that this went on an awful long time, but I think that there was some real benefit, because it's been a long time before, or since people have had any real understanding of what your objectives had been. It's changed from everything from the splash park to, I was hearing at one point that it was a couple of banquet rooms, and I thought, well, I mean, that is like a private sector thing. I don't want to be involved in something like that. So it was good to see that there was more comprehensive understanding and objective to what this facility will provide, so.
And just so everybody knows, we meet the 3rd Monday of every month, and our next meeting is scheduled when, Amy? Where? What location?
July 20th at Green Oak at 7 p.m.
And we hope that everybody that voiced concern can be there tonight, or be on there at July 20th, so we can all sit down and we can explain the whole process to everybody. But it's hard to kind of have these meetings and have nobody show up, and then have all these questions when we're trying to have meetings so that people can have their questions answered. Yes, sir.
Just one last thing, so is the, real quickly, is the council's asked that
We have to go back and look.
proposal for at least one, maybe two other, the same proposal they did for two other locations, one or maybe two other locations?
That's what their ask had been. Ours is simply to look into this Dixboro site. If they wanted to go extracurricular, that'd be fine with
But I
me.
mean,
But
are you expecting to have this whole proposal with the conceptual drawings and designs and all that stuff too, or not?
Well, no, I mean, the facility is conceptualized already. It's not, that wasn't site-specific, so,
Okay, I didn't know if it was, I was just curious. You talked about having 15,000 left.
yeah,
It was for
right,
infrastructure.
right, right. Now, can you,
Make it
can
quick.
Chuck, can you
Yeah,
get
we got
Chuck
a big
Smith?
agenda to hit yet.
I just have one question. Can you consider the 11 Mile and Milford Road areas as well in the, you know, as
The issue
I'm
is,
going to tell you personally, that isn't going to fly because it's nowhere near any of the schools, and we're going to rely on the kids being able to walk to this facility.
well,
That's,
Oh, there's tons of them. Livonia doesn't buy a host of schools, and it's
the issue
very
is more with
successful.
Lyon Township on
Yeah,
that spot. I mean, they wanted it originally, but when we started looking at, and believe me, Lyon Township can explain all that to you, why the utility hookup was an issue.
That would be very expensive. I mean, they're a long ways from utilities, so.
May I ask one question also related to that? What if you said no? Or what if the council said no to McCaddy Park? Would then the 11 in Milford then be a potential, or is it completely shot down from Lyon Township? That there is no way that it can ever go there?
Those are all good questions you should ask Lyon Township.
Okay, so you won't answer that that's a
well, he
no
can't
way
answer
from
for
you.
Lyon
He doesn't,
Township.
he
On
doesn't
behalf of
represent
Lyon
Lyon
Township.
No, I know
Township, so
you don't,
he can't
but
answer
if
it.
you're on the committee to try and find a location, you should be able to know what they might say.
Okay,
All
we
right, let's
have
go.
to move on to it. We have a long agenda of things to do yet, so.
Hey, Ted, can you make sure that they get Chuck's information, contact
I'll give it
information?
to Mike. I'll talk, if you want me to be a liaison, I will, I don't care.
Isn't there somebody who wanted to volunteer? You should get her number.
Is there a sign-up sheet for volunteers?
There was a lady that, there was a lady that wanted to volunteer. Was that you? Yeah, don't leave without giving your number to these people. I will. Okay.
Okay, we need to consider and revise negotiated options for the city attorney retainer agreement. We had a committee meet.
Mr. Mayor, if I can address this. At the last council meeting, council designated several members from council to sit down with me and discuss how to move forward with a revised proposal for amending or changing the retainer agreement. We met last Monday, I believe, and the common ground that was discussed is contained in the agenda note. And generally speaking, there's a hybrid retainer, $9,000 a month for 80 hours. Over 80 hours is billed at $135 for year one, $140 year two, and $145 for year three. Personnel and employment matters are out of retainer. Labor would be charged at the $160, which is consistent with the current agreement. And there is an ability to have special projects and assignments that are extraordinarily time-consuming. Paragraph 9 allows for adjustment, and it's a 3-year contract. So there were, to briefly explain the change, the flat retainer amount remained the same, but it allows for more hours to be covered in that, which is to the city's benefit. And the hourly rate above that is lower than what was originally proposed by me.
By how much?
Substantive.
I think it's $15 an hour, but then there's a scale up for years 2 and 3 by $5 a year.
It starts off, it's like averages $1.14. If he were to be working on the same rate he has the last 3 years, it'd be like $1.14 an hour, as opposed to the $1.40 that he had originally.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was asking.
Yeah.
A question, Mr. Mayor.
Joe?
So one of the things we talked about was limiting non-essential hours and having some sort of a, at least in concept, a understanding of where we could limit those hours. Have we had that conversation yet with Lynn?
No.
Okay. Because that was one of the things that was driving the retainer dollar per hour, was based off of how many hours it was.
Lynn wasn't at the meeting, so
Right. We talked about this last Monday, was it this Monday or last Monday? Last Monday, so I didn't know within the past week, 7 days, that we had a chance to have that discussion. Doesn't sound
We
like
did
it.
talk about it at the meeting that you, it was Glenn that brought it up, that Lynn and the attorney, I'm sorry, I just can't see anything. The lights are so bright.
Oh, it's like the
It's
sun.
like, I can't even. We had talked about Lynn and you getting together and seeing where you could cut hours.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it didn't happen in the last week. I was able to put this together. I was out of town from Friday through the weekend, so.
That's better, thank you.
I'm certainly, as we discussed with the designated members, I'm certainly willing to explore that and take direction from council or the city manager on.
Because I feel like I only got half the information. That was my big concern, and that's where I wanted to see. I mean, I know that we had a committee to do that part of it, but I thought there was also going to be another part of it, because I had no problem bringing you more current, but I had a problem with how many hours you were working and how much the city manager relied on you.
Well, I guess I would ask for further direction or discussion on that, because I'm not sure where, that's a wide open
Yeah,
issue.
right.
It's a
Like
little
there's
hard for me to say that I'm not gonna do things, or to hear, you're not gonna do these, you're not attending this meeting, you're not to do this, or whether it's operational, is it things are gonna go through the city manager first? Is it subject to council review? Is somebody gonna review the bills going forward? I don't know that that's happening now. It's a very wide open issue that I'm not sure is a one-time discussion piece or with just the administration.
I thought the suggestion was made that if you went over your allocated number of hours per month, you were gonna have a detailed billing statement which would explain, you know, do you keep a?
We wanted a detail irrespective of.
Well, yeah, no,
what
but
the
he keeps that, he keeps that.
Yeah.
I mean, when he submits it, it's my understanding your monthly bill that you submit has has pretty much a detailed breakdown of how much time, how much, what you did and how much time was allocated towards that project, or whatever you were doing.
Correct. It goes by date, it identifies the attorney, the description of the task, and the number and the amount of time to the 10th of the hour, and the related billing charge.
And you're submitting that every month as we
That's
speak?
every month.
Okay.
Always has been,
So we already have an itemized detail bill from you coming every month.
every month.
So I guess the issue was, if he's going above the allocated numbers of hours per month, we would have an explanation what that was for and why.
Yeah, but, I mean, we need to take a look at that, because since Lynn has come on board, we have increased our number of hours,
No,
and
we haven't. They are literally the same. It's actually 1 hour different, lower per month than what it was prior to that.
I thought it was
No, it was
increased.
1 hour lower. The objective had been, I thought that if Lynn and Tim, primarily Lynn maybe, could end up doing an analysis on where we might be able to do things in-house rather than giving the task to the legal.
Right.
You know, I mean, our hourly rate for anybody, we could buy a clerk and do some stuff probably, and, you know,
Well,
I
that's the
mean.
thing, I mean, the committee that was formed here, they did your job, Lynn. You're supposed to negotiate contracts. This committee that was formed, where Harvey, Joe, and Glenn volunteered their time, you're supposed to negotiate contracts.
I take issue with that too,
I
because
take
we were
issue
having an argument about what would the acceptable rate was.
Acceptable, right, yeah.
And, the different options that were available, so we put a committee together to see which option the committee would recommend to us that
Right.
we could live with. And the hope was that
You
once
don't
the
think
committee.
Lynn could have done that?
Obviously, she couldn't because we were arguing about it.
Yeah, I don't think so, right,
Yeah, I
because
think she-
we've got skin in the game. She would
What's
be
the-
arguing with all sides then.
It's the same proposal that we had 5 months later, so that's why
I mean, I was under the impression when it was brought to us last time that it was going to be some change from what it was 5 months ago, but it was the exact same proposal. But that's neither here nor there.
What are you talking
No,
about?
no, what are you
it's
talking
not
about,
here
Joe?
nor
It was
there.
the
Joe,
same option.
What are you
You
talking
can't
about?
make stuff up.
I'm not making.
You
it
are
was the
making
sa-
this
it was
up. We
the-
just had this a conversation 2 weeks.
Okay. You know what, I'm not going to be pushed around here, but that's
Oh,
okay.
yeah,
So-
okay, that's your defense
No,
mechanism.
You'll just
that's
make
fine.
stuff up and
Oh,
then
that's
not
fine.
answer.
No,
You're
no,
right
no.
about it.
So anyhow, my question is, before I was interrupted, how much is the final raise? Do we have a number of how much, was that 100% approximately? What's it at right now?
61%.
All right, 61% raise increase. All right, I just wanted to make sure I had that number in my head.
Keep
Thank
saying
you.
100, but it's
No, no, I said it
61.
went from 100, and I was curious what's it at now, today. So it went from 100 down to 61% increase. Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Joe, you were on the.
Went from 100. It didn't, I mean, that was one of the 3 options that he had pitched.
Joe,
You
you
answered
were-
my question, thank you.
Joe, you were on the committee. What was your recommendation when you were with the committee regarding his bill?
Yeah.
What was your recommendation? I mean, you were on the committee, so now's your opportunity to tell us your grand plan of what you wanted to do
Well,
and
I'm
what
not
your proposal was. No,
Okay.
seriously, you're criticizing what the committee has done, but you're on the committee and you've yet to tell us what
Well,
your
he did
idea
offer
was.
up a raise.
I
It
did
just
offer up a
wasn't
raise, I did, but you know what, I'm not a lawyer here, so I'm sure you're
Joe,
going to
it's
criticize
got
my
nothing to
fees
do
here.
with being a lawyer. It's asking a question. No, seriously, I'm asking a question.
I did
What was your-
offer a raise, but, you
How
know,
much?
it's not what's on the table, so it
Then
doesn't
what,
matter.
but how much was your raise?
I'd like to see Lynn just do more in-house. That's where we were discussing I was still talking. And I'd like to see Lynn do more. I mean, I understand the attorney was underpriced for what we need. And I understand that you need a raise for what you do. I understand that. I just want the city manager to stop relying on you so much. I mean, maybe when she gets in a real bind, but I mean,
Well, when there's
just-
legal, then Tim
Right.
has to be
And when there-
involved.
but there should be some things that we do on a daily basis that we can do without picking up the phone and calling you.
I think that the difficulty in that concept is it's sometimes hard to identify early in the process what's going to cause you problems. And that's one of the concerns that I have. And the second is, I certainly think there's the ability and room to maybe do some of this work that is non-legal, that may have been pushed to the city attorney's chair for whatever reason, to push that back and do it somewhere else in the city. But legal work is legal work, and I think you need your attorney involved, and I don't want you to think that there's a silver bullet by pulling work away from the city attorney office, because that can backfire on you and
And I understand
lead to
that, but
legal
there has
problems
to
that
be
cost
some
more in the
things
end.
that there has to be some things that are more capable. The other thing, did the committee look at anything for human resources? Somebody's got to do human resources, and it can't be in-house, and it can't be the attorney. I mean, did anybody look at the cost of that and how that would factor into our monies that we spend? I mean, somebody has to be available for human resources.
Well, we were talking about the legal, so.
That's a whole
No,
separate topic.
but that's being taken away from legal. So we need to put it somewhere, we need to know what monies are involved, and how to budget this whole package, because we've taken away
Then we'll do
something.
an HR project. I mean, try to get some bidding on HR.
But do you want to do that in relationship to,
If that shaves his time, then we save money.
right?
So, I mean, it's simple as that.
May I,
Yes, go ahead, Harvey.
let me see if I can give you an example that would answer your question. In terms of writing personnel policies, HR, okay, that should be the duties of the city manager.
Yes.
Now, reviewing those policies for legal sufficiency and so on and so forth, that's the job of the attorney. The attorney's job is a much shorter, smaller piece of work, but equally as important as to the actual drafting of the HR manual.
And when we have a human resource problem,
It depends on the nature of the problem.
who makes that judgment call?
It depends, I think our charter tells us how human resource problems are handled.
No, it's failed us.
Hmm?
It's failed us in the recent.
It may have, That's not the argument here. The argument is who does it.
I'm just asking if it was considered.
Okay.
But that's a good example. I mean, there are a number of things in that kind of plane that we can shave Tim's time down with.
Absolutely we can, but I thought that that was gonna be part of this presentation. I don't feel like I have the whole presentation. I thought there was gonna be some discussion and another part of it.
No, this is
Ours is
this is
just
the retainer agreement
enumerate,
for
yeah.
the city attorney. That's the only question before us today.
We did discuss some of those concepts, but nothing was formalized for presentation. Simply, and I guess the question might be, how do we formalize those types of things, and is that a good idea? I certainly think a meeting of the minds and, you know, direction to Lynn and I saying, she and I need to be talking, and maybe specific direction that as the conduit, she's being very cognizant of what goes to the city attorney, when do things go, are there limitations on a discussion about how long things might take, things of that nature. And those things would be difficult to formalize from a procedural standpoint. And you don't want to hamstring people to the point where they can't get the job done.
Right.
Because, you know, I think the big thing is to make sure the work gets done that needs to be done.
The objective of our committee is simply to be renegotiating the rate. That's it.
That's exactly what it was.
Ted, may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Why don't we just have the bills submitted to us in our council packets for the next 3 months, so we can monitor what's being done, so we'll have an idea of what the time is being allocated to. If we have any questions at that point, you know, following those 3 months, then we can revisit the issue. But the issue is, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna retain Tim's services or not? And if so, at what rate? And I think that's the matter that's right here. But to address Aaron's concerns and anybody else's concerns about what the time is being spent for, I think the only way to really understand what the time is being spent for is to actually see his monthly statements. That's just a suggestion.
I think it's a good suggestion.
And we already have those. All we have to do is copy them, right?
Exactly.
And I'd like to see them in E-form. I don't want a 400-page.
Right, but I'm just saying, so the issue now is, what are we gonna do about his retainer agreement?
I think this is a very nice compromise myself, so.
So
You
make
can
the motion.
make the motion.
Yeah, I do make the motion that we support this. Yeah.
I second
There
it.
yet. You second. Further discussion on this?
Yeah, just for me, it's just a little outside my comfort level, the amount of the raise, so I'm going to be a no vote on this. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
New business.
And I will be getting those in my packet, correct?
Consider, we should all be getting them. Consider approval of the budget
Well, now,
amendments.
Well,
wait, Chris,
It seems like I'm the only one.
I have
I don't get it
I have a
sometimes.
question, because Councilman Kivel just asked for them in an electronic format. Do we
I
want
don't
them
care how it
electronically,
comes-
or do we
I don't
want
care
them?
how it comes to me.
You know where I
It
stand.
generates.
They're
all-
generated
it all
on
varies.
paper and sent to us as a
Paper
bill.
bills.
But we can scan them in and email them, or we can include them.
I would much
with-
prefer that. We
That's
have
fine.
trees falling by the wayside for this.
Okay, that's the only clarification I wanted.
I'm good.
Oh, the city gonna buy me a computer then?
Oh, my God, give Ted's on paper form.
Thank
Have
you.
that on the
Since
record?
they come on paper form.
Do you have an overhead projector?
Move on.
Yep.
All right, now, new business. Consider approval of budget amendments for 2014 to 2015.
All right, based on our current revenue receipts through June 15th and expenditures through June 18th, the attached budget amendments are proposed for the 2014-2015 budget. You have several options. You can approve all of them, you can reject all of them, you can approve some, or you can reject some. We can start with the general fund, revenue account. Under grave openings and foundations, we have had an increase in, unfortunately, people have been dying to get into the cemetery, so we need to do a budget amendment to increase the revenue account for 10,500. For police miscellaneous, there's been a higher than anticipated reimbursement from the DEA of 51,630. For property rental from cable franchise, there's been an increase of 6,320 due to higher usage. Under miscellaneous revenues, which is a catch-all category from the auditors, and I've asked them to, when they put together our next budget, to give us a better understanding of what all revenues and expenditures they put under miscellaneous categories, so we have a better understanding of that. But we are currently 72,000 less than prior year's taxes and disability payments in our miscellaneous revenues in the general fund. And based on our expenditures in the cemetery fund, we are not going to need to do the operating transfer as large as necessary, and so we would like to decrease that $33,800. Under the administration miscellaneous expense, there's an increase of 12,269 due to a payout for storm sewer relocation. I believe we're all aware of that. That was the South Lyon collision relocation, storm sewer relocation expenditure. Under ambulance, the utilities, we need to increase that by $100 due to higher utility bills. Gas and electricity rates fluctuate from year to year, so that's one that's kind of difficult to know for sure. Under DPW, vehicle maintenance, we need to increase one line item, that line item 17,000 due to mechanics wages. Lori and I have also been looking at that, at trying to work on finding a better way to look into the way things are being charged off, perhaps having the mechanic keep a actual log sheet of which asset he is working on to make sure that his mechanics wages are being charged off to the proper departments.
Sort
so
of
that-
how we rent equipment to particular entities there? Yeah.
Right, so that if he's working on a water department asset, that his wages are being charged off to the water department. Right now, all of his wages are charged off to the Department of Public Works, so it would make sense to better track his time. Under utilities, we need to increase that line item by 6,200 due to higher utility billing. Street lighting, again, under DPW, an increase of 12,537 due to higher utility bills. Under repair and maintenance, a decrease of 2,000 due to lower spending that we have done this year in that area. Building maintenance, a decrease of 8,000 due to less spending. Education, a decrease of 1,700 as there's been more free education opportunities and fewer opportunities that Bob has sent his employees to over the past year.
You said more free education opportunities?
Yes.
Okay.
Land improvements, a decrease of 9,500. Under Parks and Rec, an increase of 5,400 due to Porta-John rentals being increased nearly double what was budgeted. That's just, the price of Porta-John rentals has gone up over the last year.
$10 a month.
When's the last time we bid? Is that across the board? I mean, everybody's?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're standard. I
We
use
have-
them on my sites all the time.
Is there another firm, what I'm saying is, like the soccer people, and so, are some of them supplying porta-johns too?
No, we supply the Porta-Johns to all the parks, is
I just
to my
noticed that we had,
knowledge.
looked like more than one company, that's why I was
Junior League
asking.
brings their own in.
Huh?
Oh.
Junior League.
Right, just real quickly, we did bid that out this year, and there was significant savings to this other company. I'd be happy to forward that information on. I don't remember the name offhand, but that's why you're seeing the different colored ones.
Okay,
Okay.
we'd definitely
I
be
thought there was
interested in
another
that.
organization that was contributing
The one
towards
that
this.
got burned down in the park.
They
One
got
that
burned?
got burned down,
Yeah.
yes, where were you at?
Yes, there was an arson in the park several weeks ago, Aaron, and a Porta-John burnt.
Oh,
They caught him though.
oh. How embarrassing.
Under major streets,
Stupid criminals.
Feel bad for them.
under major streets, there is a snow plowing operating increase of $11,465 due to road salt purchases. Snow removal wages, an increase of $660 due to heavy snowfalls. Snow removal fringe benefits, an increase of $235. And a contribution of local streets, we're going to decrease that by $89,000 as that operating transfer is not necessary this year. Under local streets, contributions to major streets are making the same decrease of $89,000 for the operating expense, so that it matches the major streets. And under professional services, there's an increase, I don't see on the update, Laura. Yeah, you didn't put the amount. You put the increase. You increased due to road plan update, but you didn't put the amount.
Now, let me ask, it seems like that major street and local streets, one of those should be an increase, the other one should be a decrease, shouldn't it?
Yeah, mhm.
Major streets should be,
You're decreasing the revenue in local streets. You're decreasing the expenditure in major streets.
Yeah, so you're decreasing a revenue item because it's the 676,202. That's a revenue line item, which is why it's a
Right.
decrease of 89.
okay, it
But under-
doesn't say which one is, it's up and down.
Right,
so,
but
okay.
on major streets, the 485,969,203 is a expense account, which is why it's also listed as a
Okay.
decrease. But they actually offset each other.
Right, that's what I was getting at, right.
Under the cemetery perpetual care, that again goes back to what we were talking about earlier on the cemetery fund under general fund revenues. We are decreasing that by $33,800 as that operating transfer is not necessary. In the Downtown Development Authority, the current property tax, there's a decrease of $11,679 due to the TIF funds not being as much as anticipated. I believe that's due to closure of some of the businesses and some of the businesses going to the tax tribunal.
There's still an escalation in SEV down there, though, isn't there? Yeah, okay.
The DDA SEV is still continuing to increase, but there was a decrease overall. The 675-1 contribution to the farmer's market, there's an increase of $15,100 due to eliminating line item 698, which is a miscellaneous revenue. And we're attributing those revenues to what they really are, which is vendor and sponsor fees for the South Lyon market. As you know, the vendor market manager goes out and gets sponsors every year. 698 miscellaneous revenues, there's a decrease of $7,500 to reflect the revenues that are actually farmers market revenues. Those, I believe, are the revenues that she makes for selling booth space and different things like that. 702 wages is an increase of $5,400 due to the wages paid to El Sol, who is the plant waterer in the Downtown Development District area, and Mary Navraki, the farmer's market manager. Last year, Mrs. Sol's wages weren't budgeted, and Ms. Navraki's hourly wage was increased. Under number 740, operating expense, there's a decrease of $1,200 due to low use. Under 740-2, seasonal improvement, there was an increase of $3,300 due to the hanging basket purchase. That wasn't in the 14-15 budget. I think that was simply an oversight by interim manager Cook, not realizing that that needed to go into the DDA
Yeah, I was
budget.
wondering how that hadn't been accounted for.
Under 880 community events, a decrease of $2,000 due to no expenditures in that line item. In 969.369, a contribution to the building authority, there was an increase of $50 due to agent fees. That's fees that we pay for paying off the bond on the Well Street parking lot. And in 970 capital expenditures, an increase of $1,866 due to a table and a bench purchase for the Park at Pocket in the downtown park. Under the Building Authority, 674-2, contribution from the DDA, there was an increase of $3,745 to match DDA contributions. Under 446-300-999, paying agent fees, there was a decrease of $400 due to agent fees being less than budgeted. Under 446-400-999, paying agent fees, there was an increase of $50 on that line item due to agent fees being more than budgeted. Again, those
Glad we
are-
got that cleared up.
Under capital improvements, 451-801, professional and services, an increase of $8,078 due to audit fees and HRC invoices for Pontiac Trail resurfacing review and the Whipple Street parking lot lighting, looking at how that they could make improvements to that. 451-801.3, professional services, police and fire parking lot, an increase of $26,993 due to HR invoices for that project. 451-802-110, contractual services for the Lake Street project, an increase of $24,690 due to MDOT billings. MDOT is notoriously behind on their billings for the Lake Street project. We have not finished receiving all of our MDOT billings, even though that project has been completed.
Those are distributed directly from the state to the contractors?
It's for our portion of the job.
It's for our portion. Yeah,
Our portion of, MDOT administered the whole project.
but they haven't finished billing us for
They
it.
haven't finished building it out.
Okay.
They take forever.
451-802-3, professional services, police and fire services parking lot increase of $74,824 due to Spartan seal coating invoices. That was the police and fire parking lot, and
You
I
forgot
missed.
the earmark.
Yep, I just realized I missed that line item. 451-802-190, contractual services earmark decrease. Rod had put that money into the capital improvement fund. I actually believe for this upcoming budget year, I have that money in either local streets or the DDA, and I am providing the DDA with the exact language under Title 13 of the federal earmarks so that we can discuss the July meeting, exactly how we can use that money and hopefully move forward. We've had several discussions on that, and I think we've finally reached a meeting of minds that it's not going to be able to be relocated a third time, so that we need to concentrate on finding ways to use it where it's currently located. Land acquisition, 971, there's an increase of 5,800 due to easement purchase. Again, that was part of the South Lyon collision project for the storm sewer.
Hey, just out of curiosity, did we reach out to Dave Trott's office to see if he could do anything about that earmark?
I haven't talked to him, but the last time I talked to the federal government, they said there was still a moratorium on earmarks. And until that moratorium is lifted, there's not a possibility of getting that earmark relocated. But I can reach out to Dave Trott's office and see if that moratorium has been lifted. On water and sewer, 452-801, professional services, an increase of $21,600 due to HRC invoices for the DWRF project. 452-802, contractual services, an increase of $12,270 due to BRICO invoices for the DWRF. And I will tell you, I've had conversations with Mike Darga and with Jonathan Booth. I'm not particularly happy with HRC right now, as that project's been completed for over a year, and we are still continuing to get invoices for the completion of that project and have not received the final invoice for that project.
I thought there was a distribution problem. They were going to a email that wasn't being
Well,
monitored.
that was getting caught up on email, that was getting caught up on them, but we received invoice for pay order number 14 on June 8th of this month. It will be in the next bill cycle that you guys have in front of you. And I called HRC and asked them why we are getting an invoice for a project that has been completed for well over a year, and it's not the final invoice. And have not received what I consider to be an adequate answer on that. Last one is 55-818, solid waste collections, an increase of $5,002 due to an increase in accounts. That's one of those things we never really know how many trash accounts we're going to have because it fluctuates based on how many water and sewer households we have and therefore how many trash
By
accounts we have.
units.
But
Yeah, units
each
of
annual,
service, okay.
each year. Are there any questions on the amendments?
Thank
Yes,
you. I have
Harvey.
a question. On your first 2 pages for the general fund,
Yes.
the revenue decreases between the actually adopted, it should be adopted, not proposed 2014-15, decreases from, by about 88,980, call it 89,000. And on the next page, the expenditures increase by 39,991, which is an imbalance in the budget of 128,971, and I'm questioning where that gets reconciled.
Well, keep in mind, we don't have all our state shared revenues in yet, because of the year end, I have to do journal entries, and we accrue and defer some of those revenues. I'm not sure exactly how much we're gonna get in August or in July, so I didn't bump those up at all, but in actuality, where we're at right now, between your revenues and your expenditures, we're still about 6,000 in the black. We haven't exceeded that. I was just trying to get things cleaned up a bit, make sure none of my departments went over budget. The revenues, I did the best I could with, trying to guess where we were gonna end up at the end of the year. So even though it shows expenditures over revenues, where we end up actually at the end of the year with the revenues could be a bit more than what's projected here.
So,
We do know we still have a $25,000 state check coming in from the Metro Act, that's $25,500, that we should have by the end of this month, but it may come in July, which would be,
so if it comes in July, is it gonna be,
it'll
is
still be
it gonna be
booked in this
It's booked
current.
to June.
booked to June? That's exactly,
Anything over 60 days out, I have to defer it, but if it's within 60 days of year end, I can book it back.
so we should have a much better idea next meeting when we when we have a revenue and expense report for June, which is the 6th month.
Right.
Exactly, I ran a mid-month report and then based my numbers off of that.
All right. We'll watch for them. Thank you.
Somebody want to approve these amendments?
I'll move to approve the proposed budget amendments brought forth through June 18th, 2015 for fiscal year 2014-15.
Support.
Bev is supported. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, review IT contract services proposals and consider approval of contract with IT contract service provider.
Okay, in May, we sent out RFPs to 4 companies, IT Right, Visicom, JW Tech, and I'm drawing a blank on the 4th name, that have all worked with the city to providing IT services in the past. JW Tech currently does services for the police department. Visicom is the interim that we hired after Tech Resources went out of business for City Hall. And the rest of the city departments. IT Right is a statewide company that is heavily tied into BSNA, which is why I was very interested in seeing what they would propose with our implementation of BSNA as a possibility in the new fiscal year. And the third company is a company that several of the employees from Tech Resources had gone to, and so we thought that would be a good. We also placed the RFP on the city website. And I mentioned it at chamber events, asked the chamber to pass the information around to other local businesses. When the deadline came in, we ended up with two proposals, one from JW Tech and one from Visicom. As I explained in my agenda note, JW Tech is overall the low bidder for the 3-year unretainer. They are proposing $15,000 a year, which is more than what we had been paying Tech Resources by,
Oh, yeah, ton.
just a second, let me pull up my calculator real quick, if I can find it again. Sometimes I have a hard time. We were paying Tech Resources $4,750 a quarter, so times that times 4, so just over 6, actually, we were paying them more than that, not including their non-retainer services. And with Tech Resources, we found that just about everything was non-retainer services. So we were paying them a considerable amount every quarter to come out, and generally, every time we called them because we had an emergency situation, it was considered non-retainer services, whether it be a system crashed or we had viruses that we couldn't get off, that was all considered non-retainer services. JW Tech has been working with the police department. I asked the police chief to provide a memo based on his interactions with them, because I felt that was the best way to do it. He's worked with them. You should have been provided that. I will allow him to give any comments on their working relationship. Visicom does have a higher retainer rate at $22,199 for year 1, $22,864.97 for year 2, and $550.92 for year 3, with non-retainer services billed at an hourly rate of $105, which is lower than JW Tech's. All of their references were municipal or government clients. They are familiar with using Clemis and Lien. My experience, and I think the experience of any of the department heads, Lisa, Lori, I don't know if Bob has used them at all, but anyone working at City Hall, whenever we've had a problem, a question, we have emergency phone calls, whether it be a status 1 critical or a status 2 critical, depending upon how quickly we need it fixed. They either remote in or are able to quickly fix the problem. The retainer agreement requires that they either remote in and fix it or have a tech on site within 4 hours. JW Tech's retainer agreement agrees to that as well, but I think the chief can answer to how effective they have been currently with doing that.
I stand by what I wrote in the memo.
Reading that memo to us. I appreciate that.
But yeah, that's important for them to, if they don't respond, that leaves you guys really vulnerable, so that's bad.
I know oftentimes it is, I prefer to go with the low bidder. JW Tech is a small firm of 4 people. That may be some of the issues that they have in being able to provide the best service, whereas Visicom is a much larger corporation. I know they were going to send a representative, Pat Casey. So if you have any questions for him, he is the president of Visicom, about their IT services and what they can provide to us. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer it, but I will leave the decision up to the council. Either way, based on the RFPs, it would be my recommendation that we stick with Visicom. They are fully fluent in City Hall, the DPW. They've looked at all of the equipment at the water plant and are more than willing to help out. I know Bob's got a employee on hand that handles most of their stuff, but the Visicom's been out and willing to work with them on anything that they need. And they're willing to go through any of the background checks necessary to pass, to make sure that they meet the security requirements of the police and the fire department as well.
I'm kind of curious, we're going to talk about the BSNA software as well. So with the familiarity you have with that, do you think that that's instrumental in you being able to bring, top drawer service to us?
Yeah, should I come up here, or?
Yes, because it won't be on video if you don't.
Yeah, well, we work with a number of municipalities, and, a lot of times the BSNA software is supported directly by BSNA, so the actual applications are, but we certainly are familiar with providing the infrastructure that you need in terms of servers, communications equipment, security, and all of that. So if you're asking, how do you do something within BSNA, normally that would be a BSNA question, but we would help you provide the infrastructure and make sure that everything was running, kind of the foundation.
Well, I had asked Lynn earlier, because we are talking about that software later on in the meeting, if we had done an analysis about what our server, computers, whatever, if we buy this software and we don't have the hardware to support that, it'd be problematic, but they suggested that you guys have done an analytic on it?
Well, I would.
Actually, BSNA did the analytics,
Oh, they
not
did it?
Visicom.
Oh.
When we first started looking at BSNA, they did the analytics and said that we had the capacity. As I mentioned to you, the only hardware that is not in the BSNA proposal that is not on there is a receipt printer of any sort, and a credit card reader. The credit card reader, the company that we're looking at going with for doing our credit card receipts, I believe a credit card reader comes with it, so there's no reason to purchase one through BSNA. The fact that BSNA uses an Epson receipt printer, I've purchased those online before, and I think we can find them significantly cheaper than the price that BSNA is quoting in their quote. So I didn't see a reason to have them purchase them when they're a plug-and-play install type device.
And that would be somewhere that we can help. If you have, a lot of times the hardware vendors have a very specific list of hardware that they want, and of course they want to sell it to you.
Sure.
At a substantial price, and we can help evaluate that. But as far as our support, like the City of Livonia is one of our customers, they have BSNA, we help support the servers that it runs on, and BSNA provides the direct software support.
Could I just ask one more? Does the county do their IT in-house?
I'm not sure if the county does their.
I'm sorry, Oakland County?
Oakland County.
Oh, yeah.
They do, yeah, okay.
Mike? Can we do an option, or a one-year contract with an option to renew, just to see how we're,
That's fine.
how we're doing at the end of the first year, if everybody's happy with it?
Don't we have an opt-out?
You have an opt-out.
I know, but I
All of our
mean,
contracts, we write
I
our
wanna lock
90-day
in on the
contracts with
2 and
opt-outs,
3
so.
year pricing.
Right.
Can you give me a short version of what's included in your retainer and what's not?
Well, one of the challenges of putting these bids together is because, in some ways it's like legal, it's very hard to define in the bid what is really included and what's not included. And that's why I tried to include the section of the detailed pricing to tell you what exactly is included, where other people might respond and say it's $15,000 and we'll respond. But that doesn't really tell you what's in there. So I included specific software tools, the technology that we're going to use, how many hours are included, that you asked for 24/7 support for the police department. We've normally supported other police departments, and, it's not it's very, very unusual for us to get a call outside of, say, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So we included a service if you really want 24 hours, eyes on the glass, someone sitting there watching in case something happens to the police department. So that's an example of some of the specifics that are in the contract. But we're happy to, review the details because I think it is a challenge to put together an RFP that covers all the IT needs of the city with kind of the broad language that are in these RFPs.
You think after a year that you might end up having a better read on what our real needs are?
Well, there's definitely things that are needed that are not in the RFP. For example, you have the new FOIA requirements, right, which is going to require, and we have talked about this, that you're going to require email archiving. So
Right.
I apologize, I noticed that in my detailed pricing, the second page is the same as the first page, so I can get you an updated page. I include what the cost of that email archiving is. Your firewall security is inconsistent across the city. So I have a proposal, a line item in there to get that consistent across every site. Your backups, you're going to want on-site backups and off-site backups with encryption and all of that. That's not specifically addressed in the RFP. I included that in my details, so I can get all of that to you. So I have a good feel of what the city needs beyond what was specifically detailed in the RFP, and that's why I did it as actually two options. I did option one, which I felt was very responsive to the RFP, and I did option two and what I think the city really needs.
Okay. Because I was actually hoping it might end up after you had time to work with us and you realized what we really, what was necessary, excuse me, that you might be able to shave some areas that we're paying for that we're not taking advantage
Yeah,
of.
my estimate in the option two is what I really think the city is going to spend, like, more like a total cost, as opposed to, hey, here's my retainer, and then here's a whole bunch of bills of things that aren't in the retainer.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to encapsulate in that option.
And is that the option that we have before us in the fiscal note or the agenda note?
The option you have on the agenda note is option one, which is just the straight retainer. The option two, which he's talking about, I'm trying to remember where it's listed.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's the second in the,
Service
the
and
service
prices.
pricing, there's two options.
You go to the services and pricings tab. I believe it is the third page in, under option two. It does obviously increase the price, but it does provide us with additional things, as he said, that we are going to eventually need. The email archiving because of the FOIA requests, security scanning, different things like that. To be honest, because of the price, I didn't want to scare the council off with throwing that out there as the first. I thought if we started with option one and we were happy with option one, a year down the road, we could look at adding some of the option two services. Although the archiving is something we're going to have to look at sooner rather than later, because as the city attorney can explain, once July 1 rolls around, we need to start archiving all of that junk and spam, just in case a FOIA request gets somehow in one of those folders. We have to be able to go back and find it, and then the FOIA clock starts.
Is the lion's share of that offset, that cost offset in that archiving
I'm sorry.
between option one and two?
There's a number of things that I included, the archiving, backup costs, additional hours to actually cover every,
I guess my point is,
Yeah.
if we went with option one and we still have the obligation to harvest that stuff, we're going to have to pay for that as outside of the retainer, I'm assuming. So if it were just paying for caching all that junk email and stuff, is that
That's-
going to end up being most of what the cost of option two is?
I think ultimately what the city needs to do, what I was assuming would happen at some point is if we ended up getting the contract, we would have to go through line by line and say, this is all how we built it, what I think you need. And then you'd have to get approval for the cost for those items. Sort of like the the email archiving. Since I'm sorry that second page is not in here correctly of the detailed breakdown, I could tell you exactly what that line item is, but I have to look it up.
Anything else, guys? Anything else?
Again, there's recommendations in option 2 of things that the city may or may not choose to implement.
I'm kind of a mind to go with option 1 and see how things flesh out.
Do you want to go with option 1 as Mike suggested and just do a 1-year contract renewable annually rather
What
than
is
a
it that you
3-year
see as the
contract?
benefit to that, Mike?
Just want to see how it works out, how it works with the other, the departments, and see if we're all on board with it. But the renewable option, I would hope would include possibly pricing for the second and third year, so we'd have an idea what that pricing would be if we renewed it. I mean, there's one thing when you do a 3-year contract and then you have to opt out. If we're not happy with the services or whatever, we have that opt-out clause. It's another thing, when we try it for a year, if we're happy with it, then just renew for the next 2 years.
Well, I mean, we're going to be knowing the annual's coming up irrespective of whether it's the 3-year deal or the 1-year deal. So we should be doing an evaluation before.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, does that give us
Basically,
an
next March,
evaluation?
we'd be doing an evaluation again.
Pardon me?
Next March, we would do an evaluation to make sure we're happy with the services.
Yeah, so I
and-
mean, I don't see the difference between having the contract now, except we've bought a price that isn't going to change over the 3 years, so. I mean, it's already spec'd what the price change would be from year to year.
Yeah, but that's just the option for option 1. What happens at the end of the first year that, it looks like we're gonna need something else, and it makes sense to do it. That way, we were in a position where we could renegotiate for the second year, maybe an option 2. That's all I'm suggesting.
Can we beat you up after?
I'm happy to review it.
By not addressing them to somebody at night. The poor man.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that, just doing it for the year then.
Because, at the end of the year, we may need stuff that, and we maybe can negotiate a better price for it.
I think that he would end up negotiating irrespective of whether it's the 1 or 3, but.
Would that be a problem to modify the contract if we did that?
No, I mean, our approach is we write 90-day rolling contracts with our customers. They can get out anytime over 90 days, been in business 21 years, and our approach is to keep earning your business. That's how we have grown over referrals, instead of locking you into a 3-year contract. So I'm
Right, and
comfortable.
You kind of have an idea what the city would need, but I'm sure after a year, you would really have an idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what we're doing?
We're a little concerned with our bid process if we're not going to be violating that by changing what it's.
Oh, yeah, the terms of the.
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
need to,
So I'm going to make a motion then that we deviate from our budget bidding process to accept a higher bid, which also has a higher level of service. Needs a second.
needs a second, somebody.
With the 1-year deal or the 3-year?
This is just to deviate from the
Okay,
bidding.
I'll
Then the
second
second?
that. I'll
Okay.
second that.
All right, any discussion needed?
Well, it's twice as seconded.
Further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And now,
All right, I'll make the motion then that we enter into a 1-year contract with, let's make sure I get this right. Visicon Services, Inc., with the option of renewing for years 2 and 3.
I'll support.
further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And just for clarification, the
Thanks
one.
for coming out.
Thanks for coming, sitting through this long meeting with us.
The 1-year contract would be at the price that you quoted for The first year?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay.
This is not retained.
I'll get hold of you this week.
All right,
I'm on vacation, but I'll be doing email from the airports.
not be here till tomorrow, let's kind of move along, I guess.
Yep.
Consider bids for the replacement of the furnace and AC units for the main police building as budgeted for in 2015-16 city budget.
We'll turn that over to Chief Collins.
This was part of our five-year plan to replace one air conditioning unit and one furnace unit out of two of each that we have at the main police building. However, it has gone from our five-year plan to emergency status because one of the two AC units, the one that cools the north end of the police building, which includes the police squad room, has been out for about the last 2 weeks or so, and it's very hot back there. So we went through the bid process. We got what we consider a very good bid from McGraw Mechanical for $4,999 to install both one new furnace and one new outside air conditioning unit. All the bids, or at least three of the bids, had comparable equipment. I think one was significantly higher because it used the train, but we're not asking for the train, we're asking for the equipment supplied by McGraw. So we're asking council's approval to go ahead with that and get our air conditioning unit replaced as quickly as possible.
That Goodman furnace is probably made at the train plant anyway, so.
Yes.
Chief Collins, just want to say thank you. This is an example of that we should be doing across the city where we're getting these good bids. I mean, it just goes to show we are at 5,000, there's other companies coming in at 7,000. So every little scraping for pennies on the floor is good every time we can do it. I appreciate that.
Well, Lieutenant Sovic made a good effort here to get it not only at a minimum of 3 bids, but we also tried to include local companies in the bid process.
Thank you. That should be a benchmark for the rest of the city. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to make the motion to approve the purchase and installation of the furnace and air conditioning units as bid by McGraw Mechanical for $4,999.
I'll support that then.
Further discussion? I'm going to ask it now, it's discussion. On this particular item, is this something that the city manager could have approved because it's under $5,000?
No, because it's actually budgeted for FY 15-16, and so it is a early encumbrance of next year's funds. There's 3 things, this item, the next item.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
All right. All in
Otherwise,
favor,
yes.
say aye.
Aye.
And I might just add that we have almost enough in our building maintenance fund right now to pay for this. We're within $600 of being able to pay for it out of existing budget, which is our intention.
Good.
Good.
Seeing a lot of the officers out in squads, is it because it's too hot in the office?
That was a plus. If you noticed the weekly report, the number of tickets written did go up. Number one, they maybe were in a little bad mood. Number two, they're out in the cars more.
Okay. We're going to get you cooled down. Now, we're going to try to get you a couple new cars.
With an extra light bar.
Speaking of being in the cars more, we'd like to replace 2 2010 Crown Victorias. One has 89,388 miles. The other one currently has 90,000 miles. Both vehicles have had very significant repairs over the last 12 months. One has been at $3,360. The other's been at $2,256, which does not count the $722 estimate to replace the manifold. Because the manifold needs replacing, we have that car currently out of service. We're requesting to replace both vehicles with 2016 Ford Police Interceptor marked vehicles from Signature Ford. These are under the Macomb County bid, which was slightly less, within probably about $600 less than the Michigan State bid. And the total is
$51,242. And the only thing that I would add to that, other than being open to council's questions, is a reminder that we need 2 cars this year because we replaced none out of the current year's budget.
I'll make that motion. But before I do, I'd just like to, since you told me how many miles was on those cars, let you know that my car just turned over 300,000.
I knew that.
At top speed,
So,
probably.
that said, I'll approve the purchase of 2 2016 Ford Police and Scepter utility all-wheel drive vehicles from Signature Ford under the Macomb County bid at the cost of $51,242.
I'll second.
For discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we're talking 120 days down the road, right?
Yes, we would place the order now because there is approximately a 4-month delay on delivery of the vehicles. And then, once the vehicles are delivered, there's probably another 6-week or so delay in getting the emergency equipment, radios, et cetera, installed in the new vehicles.
Will anything from the Crown Vics transfer into these?
Yes, we plan to have them, and much of the equipment will transfer, and believe me, we're going to transfer every scrap of
Boy, I'd
equipment that
be
we can.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Chickens.
Discuss whether or not to give the city planner authorization to develop an ordinance allowing chickens within the city limits.
As you remember at last meeting on June 8th, Miki Giles approached the council requesting that the city consider amending their ordinance on the keeping of chickens, hens in the city limits. Both council members, Kapowski and Rizzi, asked that the issue be placed on tonight's agenda. Based on the information provided to the council by Ms. Giles, there's several issues that would need to be determined before an amendment of the ordinance could be drafted. I don't know why I said resolution. It should be ordinance. What I have provided for you are ordinances from local communities, Novi, Farmington Hills, the city of Brighton, I believe Ypsilanti. Was there one more? Oh, and I also provided the actual permit form that the city of Ypsilanti uses. The decision that needs to be made is if there is enough general interest from the city council for us to direct the city planner to work with me on drafting an ordinance revision to allow backyard chicken farming in the city of South Lyon or not. I don't have a recommendation or a suggestion on this matter.
I thought that the language in a number of these was really good. One specifically, I think it was Ypsilanti, had whether, if it was within a certain distance, then the abutting neighbors have kind of veto power, essentially. And I thought that that was a helpful thing. And one thing that I hadn't really given much thought to, but the neighborhood associations in some of our subdivisions, you know, they can end up having rules that say you can't do that, and the city can't foist that on them. So
Right.
I thought that that was another additional protection that would allow people to feel protected if they had, I mean, those neighborhoods tend to be more homogeneous and, you know, no fences and things of that nature. So
Right.
I thought it probably would be a more natural setting for them not to have them.
Yeah, there will probably be several homeowners or homeowners associations that already have on their books some type of regulations dealing with this. So that's why I feel it's not something for me to recommend or suggest. I grew up around chickens. As long as they are well taken care of and well fed and cleaned up after, they can be a very positive experience. It just depends on the owners.
Joe?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with Glenn. I mean, certainly you have to have restrictions. You can't just have 50 chickens and small lot and be on top of each other. And as Glenn mentioned, a lot of instances will be the homeowners associations will have governing bodies. So, I mean, it's not just about if you having chickens or it's about actually providing food. And it's kind of a way of living. And I think it's something that, quite frankly, people should embrace if they want to, if they choose. I also think it's a property issue. As long as you're not interfering with your next door neighbor, I mean,
They should have the enjoyment of your own property.
exactly.
Well,
So
that
that's
goes-
always been my philosophy. I mean,
That goes for anything.
but of course, if you're infringing on your neighbor, then, you know, send the ordinance officer out there, take a look at it, enforce it. There would have to be some checks and balances. But I guess, in principle, I'm not opposed to this.
Right. In principle, I would say I agree with Councilman Kivel. I think Ypsilanti has done an excellent job. I like the permit form that they have that gives the city an opportunity to know where those hens are so that if there is an issue, we know where to go and check. It's not something that we're looking at as a revenue generator, but more as a, in past communities that I've lived in, we've used this type of a permit for limiting large amounts of animals like dogs. You know, if somebody wanted to raise kennels in a non-industrial area, we made them get the neighbors to sign off on allowing them to have more than 3 dogs on their property. So this would be a similar type situation.
Mike?
I'm just curious, on the distance restrictions that are in some of these ordinances, even if you use 100 foot or 100 foot from the property line or from another residence, how many homes in South Lyon are we even talking about if you have a distance restriction? That can actually have, right, I mean, that could have chickens in their backyard.
But is that a practical number?
Yeah, you
I mean,
have
that's the
to-
whole thing, is that,
Well, it's more to the nuisance value, because if you have, you know, let's put it this way, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't buy a house in the city of South Lyon to have a chicken coop
probably have
right next
rules
door to
already.
me in my, no, I understand that, but I mean, I've gotten a lot of people that have come up to me, and I know there's a lot of people that are for this, but there's also a lot of people that are against having chickens in their neighbor's yard and having to deal with those issues. I know the argument can maybe be about dogs and stuff like that, but I'm just personally, I didn't move to South Lyon to have chickens in my backyard. I mean, if I wanted, no, but if I wanted chickens in my backyard, I would have moved to a rural area that had enough space where I could have chickens and I wouldn't have to have issues with neighbors or anything like that. I just anticipate that if we pass an ordinance that has a very limited distance restriction, so that more people in the city can have access to chickens, it's going to create more problems than there's going to be solutions to. I mean, you're going to have a very, very busy ordinance officer going out to check all the complaints if you limit the restriction of the distance between property lines. That's all I'm saying.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree that I don't want to live in the country. But I've read the ordinances from the other cities and the application fees and all that. If it's handled in such a way that we have reasonable setbacks that keep it away from the neighbor's property lines and from the houses, and concurrence of all the adjoining neighbors, and permits, I could probably go along with it.
I
But
think the
it
permission
needs
by
to
the
be-
neighbors would be good.
It needs to be crafted, it needs to be crafted so that, it's, you know, if it doesn't, someone just doesn't fit, the setbacks or something, they can always go to the ZBA and Phil will help them out.
Or myself, I'm on the ZBA, so whatever.
Or the,
Chicken gets loose, when you tell it no, it's gonna listen.
I mean, or if somebody is not really managing their chickens well, I mean, there should be some redress to be able to either get them to control them or they have to get rid of them, you know.
Or they lose their permit.
Yeah, yeah.
And I hear about these cities, Novi, Farmington Hills, Ypsilanti, Grand Rapids, there's a million of them, not a million,
No,
but.
there's not, there's 31 cities in Oakland
Well,
County alone.
All right.
You can't name but two.
No, I just named 5, I mean.
No, they're not in Oakland County.
Okay.
You named two.
You're right, you're right, I wasn't claiming I was
Thank you,
Oakland
I'm
County,
right.
I was just saying in the
You're
area.
saying that.
Okay, we're gonna get 10, okay, but anyhow, the point is, I think we're behind the 8 ball, just showing how these other cities do it, so, I don't know, I'm not, like I said, not against
Well, I'm
it.
glad we have grocery stores, because I'm not gonna have chickens, but I don't want to preclude somebody else to.
Right.
Because I don't feel like going through that.
I was just at a friend's house not too long ago, and I was there for multiple days before I even noticed that they had 2 chickens in the
Right.
back.
Yeah, me too.
They're
Last
like-
weekend, you know.
Yeah, you don't even notice them. I mean, they're just, and the 2 chickens fed a family of 4.
This is not roosters, by the way.
There was no roosters, there were
This is
just chickens.
just chickens.
I mean, they're feeding themselves.
Do we have a thumbnail on what Carmen would charge to put something together?
Actually, what I would do is I would draft the ordinance and run it by Carmen and make sure it doesn't violate any of the zoning ordinance, and then he would probably run it by Tim, and it's the most logical thing to do since we have sample ordinances to go by.
Yeah, it can't take that much time or cost, so, I mean, if at the end of the day, we say, well, you know, we don't feel as though people are protected enough, we could always just say no, so.
And Williams Sonoma Online sells these awesome chicken coops. They're very architectural. Aren't they awesome?
Designer
It'll be
chickens.
better in some people's houses.
Awesome. Better than mine.
Yeah.
Well,
That's great, a 3-story chicken coop.
I'd like to make a
awesome.
motion that we ask Lynn to put some language together and move forward with this.
This is on the agenda as a discussion topic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not an action item.
Oh, yes, it is. Well, let's put it on the agenda for the next meeting, so that we could take action.
Can we put it on the second meeting in July? Okay.
I don't see any imperative to have it overnight. Can you hold off on chickens for a minute?
And the only reason I'm asking for the second meeting is that gives me time to do the draft, run it by Carmen, and
Yeah,
then
sure.
run it
And
by
then we'll be
Tim.
ahead of the game anyways.
There's no rush. Shoot, yeah.
It's doing what we wanted anyways, so.
All right.
You know, okay, we're gonna have that put on. That's a general consensus. For the second meeting, July?
Yep.
Okay, move on to consider approval changes city cell phone contract, AT&T.
Lisa, do you want to handle this, or do you want me to handle this?
If you don't mind.
Nope, I have no problem. Lisa brought this to me. She was making some phone calls to AT&T and discovered that the city was not on a government plan, but was actually on a business plan, and discovered that we could save money by switching over to that. Additionally, the cell phone that the city assigned to me, I have had continued challenges with from the day I got it and then continuing up through last week. I received personal calls for the previous city administrator, from his dentist, from his numerous other doctors, from his friends, et cetera.
Did you pass on the message?
I don't have another number for him, so no, I don't pass on the messages. I currently have that number forwarding to my own personal cell phone, so I don't actually use the phone itself. If we were to discontinue that phone, it would save the city, plus with the change to a government plan, it would save the city $179.87 a month, for a total of $2,158.44 per year. And there's a spreadsheet attached that shows you what those savings are and how active any of the lines are, how many minutes, et cetera. I understand it's been brought up some concerns about my using my personal cell phone for city business. I have the city's email address that goes directly to my cell phone, and I use that, and all those emails go directly through the city server. So for any FOIA requests, it would go through the city server. Beyond that, other than phone calls, which are not recorded phone calls, whether I'm on a city phone or on my personal phone, I'm not sure what city business would be subject to any issues that maybe Tim can point out to me. There would be a problem with my using my personal cell for city business, and my intent here was to save the city money by not carrying 2 cell phones.
We want to see all your texts.
I mean, it does seem like
Your
limited
personal server.
exposure. I
Yeah,
just wanted
you
to
know.
make sure that-
Hillary had to.
That's fine, they're texts to my kids.
I know.
and-
Give anything up yet.
No, I personally use my own phone, I mean, for city business, and I don't see a problem with this.
As I said, unless the city attorney can see a reason, I think that it would be a money-saving option for the city. I already
Money
paid.
saver one way or the other. I mean, the government account would be
Yeah.
cheaper than the other ones. So.
Right, but it does not save as much. And I pay my own cell phone bill. I'm not asking the city for a stipend to help pay for my cell phone. So,
All right. Mike?
Stupid question. I have a 12-year-old son, and 3 gigabytes of data can disappear in a weekend if he's not assigned to, he's not in a Wi-Fi spot. I know this package here has 3 gigabyte for 4 smartphones. Is that, I mean, just out of curiosity, is that gonna be enough? Because like I said, my son, one weekend, I get notices saying that my data plan's all used up.
more.
Yeah.
$10 more.
No, it's
to be
called,
honest, we only have,
data.
we have, that would be 3 phones. It would be the chief of police's cell phone. It would be Bob Martin's cell phone using data, and I'm trying to think who the third one,
Just no YouTube, guys. You all set?
I can't imagine that there is a significant amount of non-Wi-Fi data going through.
Sure.
I'll tell you, I have my phone, my iPad, and 2 teenagers on a 10 megabyte plan, and I never run out of cell phone data.
By the way, Bob, I had
10
3
meg
pocket
or
calls
10
from
gig?
you last
10
week.
gig.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't think Bob's in danger of burning up the data.
Yeah. I don't think there's any of us that are, any of the city staff that are burning up data on their city cell phones.
So you watching the city council meetings.
Okay,
Let me make a motion.
go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the changes to the city's cellular phone contract with AT&T and eliminate the specified underutilized phone line for the city manager.
Okay, for discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Now we're to the manager's report.
No, we got one more thing.
PSA.
What?
BSNA?
BSNA.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we got all this different buy-in we're doing. Consider approval of contract, all right, with BSA.
Plus with money.
All right, the last technology item of the day. Considering the approval of the contract BSNA, when we put together the budget for fiscal year 2015-2016, we had proposed spending for the upgrades to BSNA, which also allows the web access for our residents. This would be general ledger, accounts payable, cash receiving, fixed assets, utility billing, and the building departments, along with the implementation of BSNA's Access MyGov, their AMG services. In order to get on their implementation schedule and ensure the conversion of all the programs take place during the upcoming fiscal year, I wanted to bring this to you now. The reason being, they are already scheduling their implementation schedules out into September, and with as many programs as we're implementing, it may take us a considerable period of time because we're not going to be able to do them all right at the same time. Utility billing is going to have to be done at a time when we're not doing water bills. General ledger is going to have to be done, obviously, after the audit. The building permits, we're going to need to do midwinter when we're not in the middle of the heavy building season. So we're going to have to coordinate that with all of the department heads and the department individuals to make sure that they're on board and get everything done. The total proposed amount for BSNA conversion is $72,250, which includes all of the applications, data conversions from our current system, import of all of the Oakland County property data, implementation and staff training for each of the modules, And the cost will be broken down by relevant. The general fund administration and building department total cost is $51,939.68. And the water department and wastewater departments will each be billed $10,155.16. And those are figures that are calculated into the 15-16 budget. You should have copies of each of the proposals. They have gone through and done a review of all of our hardware, our server, to make sure that there is enough room on our server for all of this. This is a site license software, which means that we'll be able to have it on all of our computers. So unlike with fund balance, where only the bookkeeper, the deputy clerk, and the clerk's computers really have access to all of this information, I'll be able to look up stuff in fund balance and general accounting without having to bother the bookkeeper in the middle of doing things. Any workstation, any department head will be able to go in and look at their budgeting things. With the access on the web, people will be able to go in, look at utility billing, all other property records, and pay things by credit card.
Through a third party. Through a third party,
The third-party credit card, yes.
which sheds us from responsibility with all that transaction.
Yeah, but what's the percentage that they're being, do we know what
There's
they're?
a
That'll be
flat
their
convenience fee, just the same as if you were to call into consumers or DTE and pay.
Okay, so
There's
it
a
wouldn't be a
bump, but it's not.
percentage of it, would just be a standard transaction fee?
Generally, yes.
Okay,
But they'll know going in. I mean,
But they'll know
before they
going in
make a
before they,
decision.
yeah.
okay.
Before the transaction's authorized, they'll know exactly what the convenience fee is and have the option to opt out.
Yeah, if it's, a $40 charge, no one's gonna take
No,
advantage of that.
usually the charges run like $2.95.
Yeah. For the convenience, a lot of people do that.
Well, I'll make the motion then that we approve the contract for the BSNA implementation.
Second.
For discussion? Okay,
To my
so-
understanding, this is what the county's using, right? BSNA?
BSNA is the yes,
So,
that's
I mean,
what the
it
county is
links
on.
with that real well, so.
That should, that should all
Right.
mesh together nicely. Assessing and all that.
Consider, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Managers report.
Okay, you should have received several things in your packet from me as well. One is the Road Commission's quarterly brochure. They asked me to make sure you got those. There was also a thank you letter that missed getting in the information portion of the packets. Again, I apologize for the state of the packets this time. Kristen Delaney was out of the office due to illness all last week, and Joan volunteered to put the packets together, but it was her first time collating them, so she was not familiar with exactly how things were to go together. You also have in that a copy of the workshop agenda for the summer MGMLA workshop. I'm currently registered to attend that as part of my ongoing professional development unless there is a problem with the council. I have so far completed 10 training hours for free this year. This will give me an additional 20 hours of the 40 that I need overall in the calendar year to retain my credentialed manager status. As a ICMA credentialed manager, those last 10 hours I should be able to obtain either through webinars, additional free classes, as I've done for the first two, or through MGMLA trainings or ICMA trainings in the area. So I wanted to make you aware of that. That's the end of July. Aaron, you had asked me to talk to Carmine about looking into food trucks and those types of vehicles, so I provided you some information. I also met with Carmen last week about that. He is going to start looking into what we can do. There are several communities statewide that have changed their peddlers and solicitors ordinances to handle food trucks, requiring permits depending upon how long they're going to be in place, different things like that. So that's some of the things that he's going to be looking at. He'll be putting together a recommendation and bringing that in a form for all of the council to look at on how we want to do that. One of the things that I don't want to do is discourage, which some communities have, is a special event license permitting fee. So for things like Pumpkin Fest, Blues, Brews, and Brats, Cool Yule, any of the different events that we have in town, a lot of communities actually require any food vendors to get a special event permit of $50, which I think is a little bit expensive because then they also tend to pay for booth space at those events. So I want to make sure that we do this, but we don't want to hurt our bricks and mortar food service businesses. But I wanted to make sure that you knew I was following up on that as you asked me to.
Thank you.
And lastly, you should have received a spreadsheet of a survey I did through the manager's listserv on municipal cemetery costs. As we talked at the budget work session, the cemetery perpetual fund is decreasing on a regular basis due to needs to transfer to the operating fund for it. And it may be necessary to look at raising those funds. I wanted to give you this information early on before we begin the fiscal year to look at, and we'll be bringing it forward for a work session for us to discuss and look at and consider options for what we can do on our cemetery fund to make sure that the perpetual care fund does not go broke. I am on vacation the rest of the week going to Kansas. I will be available as much as I can, but I will be at Tuttle Creek Army Corps of Engineers Reservoir, so there may be limited cell phone and email reception. But as soon as I do get things, I will respond. And I will be back next Monday. Beyond that, I will also be working on looking at several grants. I've provided the DDA with a grant on blight remediation for the downtown area that they're going to work on. They're going to take a look at things that we can do to perhaps create a downtown land bank through MEDC to begin building buying some of our blighted buildings and making them available. I also want to look into what some of the other communities are doing with vacant downtown buildings and turning them into pop-up stores, which have become very popular, allowing young entrepreneurs to rent for a day or for a week a space to come in and open their shop for a day and give people an opportunity to see what kind of goods and services they provide without having to go through the full process of opening up a full-scale bricks and mortar structure, sort of like a retail what's the word I'm looking for? Not really a retail,
There'd be more than one in a store? Possibly 2 or 3 vendors within the store
could be
at the same
possibly
time?
2 or 3 vendors in the same store at the same time. It's kind of like a, they call them,
To be honest, my son is looking into doing something right now.
there's a lot of different things. A lot of different entrepreneurs get started where you can rent space very inexpensively just to get your business started without having to start a bricks and mortar space. I'm thinking it would be a great opportunity for us to use our downtown retail space as sort of a think tank and pop-up retail opportunity for some of those. So those are things that I've got the DDA that I want to look at.
Okay, thank you. Joe?
Two quick things. First is regarding Oakland 40 or Knowles, South Lyon. I've spoken to a lot of residents in the area, including Ms. Higgins and also Mr. Lair. Thank you. And there's trucks that are still coming through, and I know we talked by email, and I just want to reiterate that, don't be afraid that if we have to red tag them. I'm at that point right now. So I was actually had this question for Chief Collins. Do you know if Are we ticketing them, or any trucks, or how are we addressing that as well?
So far, there's been nothing to ticket. There were, I believe, 3 gravel trains that exited to the north that were the first cause of attention to the project,
Okay.
but we didn't apprehend them. The trucks today were simply tree service trucks and a chipper that were working at private residences in the area. Didn't appear to have anything to do with the Knowles project. But the officers have been directed to give extra attention to commercial, the larger commercial vehicles, not your UPS trucks, and those type of things in the area. We do have 2 day shift officers trained in commercial vehicle enforcement, and they're going to learn very quickly that the last thing in the world that they want to have happen is have one of their construction trucks stopped for commercial vehicle inspection, because there's always something wrong, and those are very expensive tickets.
Thank you, Chief Collins, I appreciate that. Also, on a more positive note, I mean, for me, in my opinion, I'm glad to see that other options are being explored besides McCaddy Park for the potential rec center. I really think that's the way to go for our city, is to, in my opinion, take it off the table, that location, and look elsewhere. So hopefully this materializes, or we get some results from this alternate location we discussed today. So that's it, thank you.
Aaron?
Knowles chipper is easy to recognize. It's burning oil really bad.
Oh.
Oh, the thing is,
That was something else too.
it's amazing. I don't know how that's even chipping. Is it clear that I put something on the agenda for next time?
Yes.
Thank you.
You asked for goals from her, was that it?
Goals and objectives,
Which she did in January.
but I would be happy to update them for the new fiscal year.
We
Okay.
had a review last time in closed session, and we talked about goals, and she took notes. And I think based off of that, she should put some goals and objectives together. It only benefits her if she has goals. I mean, we're doing her a disservice as a council if we don't ask for goals.
And we probably should come up with some ourselves.
Well, we just did in the
Yeah.
review.
We
Go
did in
ahead.
the review.
Go ahead.
And so, she can compile them, and if she needs to ask us for help, she can contact us. If we need to bring some after we look at it, we can bring some. It's a discussion on what is best for our city and our city manager's direction.
I don't think she's opposed to it, so.
I think he is.
Go ahead. Your turn.
You know, I kind of meander over to Knowles every now and then, and the activity that was going on in that property today, I could see fresh cut in the, driving the perimeter to be able to work their way back around that cul-de-sac. So I mean, I saw no evidence of anybody going through where it's fenced off there or anything. So that's exactly what we had asked them to do. You can get back there on site, so you don't need the cul-de-sac. So they're complying with that part. The pre-con meeting, everything's been fulfilled, so they can kind of keep the project moving forward?
They can keep the project moving forward. I believe there are still some outstanding permits that they are waiting for before they can.
State stuff, or?
State stuff, yes.
Yeah, right, okay.
It's nothing that they're waiting for from us, but they're continuing to work with HRC, the state, and with us and Bob, and moving forward.
Yeah, this has been long enough, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Bev?
I'm good.
Mike?
Yeah, I do have a question for this council. If we spend the time to inquire about 10 Mile and Dixboro Road, and like Joe just alluded to in his council comments, and we get a favorable position from the owner of the property, are you telling me then this council, depending on the amount that he wants for the property, would support us looking further at that position, since it is in the city of South Lyon? Because I don't want to waste our time doing all this additional work when we're going to be right back here, and I'm going to be hearing budget numbers from Joe and discussions about the total cost of the project, when all we're asking is to look at a piece of property and get support from the city council. So I guess that's a question I have for the council right now. I am willing to do the work. I know this committee is willing to do the work. I just don't want to be back here again when we bring it and face the same questions, not on the property, but now the budget, the amount of money the project's going to cost. Because if I'm going to hear that same, discussion, when all I want to know is, can we proceed with this project at this location so we can go forward the next steps, we're not going to waste our time. So I'd like everybody to go on record right now that if we do get a favorable proposal from the owner of this property, that this council will support us going on the next step.
I'll support it. Those are apples and oranges. The McCaddy location and that location, they have virtually nothing.
That's fine. I just want to hear from Joe and Aaron that we have the support.
Why did you call me out?
Well,
You're
no,
next in
because,
the line.
yeah, I
He's
just
going
want to
down the
know,
line.
because I want to know.
It was Joe
No, I'm
and
going,
Aaron. I mean, what the hell
I heard from Glenn, now I want to hear from Joe. Joe, do you have your
I
support?
don't even know what the gentleman's going to say. I'm not involved in negotiations. so
But-
I guess
but-
I'm not
but
gonna
that's not my
agree to
point.
Something that I don't know what I'm agreeing to.
And Joe, why are we wasting our time doing all this additional work if you're now in a position saying, you just said you're happy that
We're
there's
looking
going
at
to.
other options, and
Right.
just to be clear, like I said, I'm not in favor of the McCaddy Park location. So if
I
we're looking somewhere else,
understand that.
then that makes me happy. That's
Right,
my
but
position.
how happy does that make you? And happy enough to support it?
Well, I don't know, what's the, restate the question, please?
All I want to know is if we get a favorable bid for that property, do we have your support to go forward and go at least go with the conceptual design for that project? Yes or no? It's a pretty simple question.
Well, I mean, that's up to the board to decide. It's not up for the
He's
advisory
asking what your
board.
vote would be, for
I
heaven's
can't
sakes.
say what I'm going to vote on when it's not before me. It's kind of difficult. So
You-
I'm
you
gonna
just-
pass. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Well, no, that,
For the majority is first.
yeah, I just want to see if there's a majority. Otherwise, why are we going to waste our time?
I said, thank
I
you.
wasn't trying to muddy the waters by bringing it in, but it came up literally at 2:30 this afternoon.
I understand that, but we spent an hour and 45 minutes on the topic, then all of a sudden, in the last 10 minutes of the discussion,
Yeah, well-
that comes up, and it just sways everything to the point now where this is all on hold until we get
Would you
this.
rather have done that in the first minute and then
Yes.
totally blow away your presentation? and-
Well,
and really irritate everybody?
A sewage lift station would have to be built on that property.
There would have to be a lift station built? Huh. What do those run? For probably a 40,000 or
Is there a
50,000
sewer
square
line in there
foot.
already? Utilities are in there, right?
It's a 30 million
They were
project.
gonna be grinder pumps at every one of those businesses in there. Why do you think he never put it in? Ka-ching?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll do the work. I just want to make sure that, oh, Harvey?
I'm not inclined to say no just to be saying no.
Okay. All right.
I didn't hear that.
I say, I'm not inclined to say no just to be saying no.
I just want to make sure it's worth our time.
He might say yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. No, seriously, this is a very serious question because you guys aren't doing the work. You guys aren't doing the work. This committee is. And I don't want to be in a position where we come back and we have the same 2-hour discussion because now we get something that might have a favorable price. But now, again, we're discussing money, but when that's not really the issue. The issue is I just want to see if we have support so I can go to the other communities.
I thought I answered the question.
No, I did, but see, the problem is, there's a big roadblock after you. I think there might be support, but I just want to get a consensus if there will be support, so I don't waste our time. It's a very simple, question that I'm not getting any answers on, other than from you, Glenn, and Glenn. Okay, thank you. I mean, it just, yeah, no, I know, but that's better than saying, I don't want to have a position, I'll pass. Seriously, this is a lot of work, guys. It really is. And we're not dealing with just South Lyon, we're dealing with Lyon Township and Green Oak Township, which are two separate communities. And I just don't want to be in a position, they're already going to see this tape. And they're going to say, boy, that really went over well. And then we're going to be back to square one. And I just want to make sure we are not wasting our time.
I agree with you. You shouldn't have to waste your time.
At the same time, it shouldn't end up being a cluster of smoke and mirrors just to try to
Glenn,
get
it's
by
not.
people.
Glenn, it's not.
That was my hesitation.
Glenn, it's not. This is the thing. We're trying to be open with this, and we're trying to do everything by the book.
Well, there were some people in the audience tonight, Mike, that would kind of suggest that that might not be the case.
Right, the only reason people started coming to our meetings is when the Herald broke the article about McCaddy Park. That's when we started getting people.
Well, I'll be quite
And we got
honest.
4. We got 4,
Right out of the
Glenn.
gate, I was at a few of the meetings. There was some stuff said that I was really shocked that was being said out loud. And information exchange wasn't the highlight of what those meetings were being founded around. It was simply, how do we end up packaging something we can sell?
Right.
And that's, I mean, when you're starting out, I understand that, because you want to try to get some inertia going. But that part is gone. People want to end up knowing what the real story is, so
And-
that's important to end up
Right,
giving
that's-
as much info as you can.
And that's my whole point.
I think that's what he was trying with this, with the McCaddy Park. They're trying to get out more information, but they got to be able to have a starting point to go from.
And I just want to make sure we're not going to waste our time. That's all I'm asking.
Well, will information be provided, like the minutes for the meetings be more available? Because I asked about those and those weren't
Joe,
even
keep
on.
attending. We want you there
But
because
no, I'm saying for the public to view it, because I went to the rec center website.
They're all
and
there. You
No,
said-
they're not all there. They're missing 3
1 month.
months there. So they're, and the ones that were missed, the last, until about a week ago, there weren't minutes up until November of 2014. Going forward, there's no minutes. So I brought that to the attention of the committee, and they updated it, but yet there's, as of this morning, there was still 3 that were missing. So I just want to make sure that.
Sure,
information
Joe,
is
we'll get
provided.
that for you.
Thank you.
It would be helpful, at least we can have some support on this issue. That's all I'm saying.
Did you ask Bev?
Bev,
Yeah, I didn't,
thank you. Thank you.
I wasn't
No,
happy with
sir.
the McCaddy thing,
But
but
that's
I.
fine. No, that's fine. I
would
just,
be,
thank
and,
you. Thank you. We chat. So, all right, I just want to make sure of that. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Too late, I'm gone.
Past his bedtime.
Can I make a motion for your?
No,
Yeah.
no, I have my comments. 2. 1 is informational. There's the Ham Radio Club is going to be at Atchison Park, starting at 2 o'clock on Saturday and runs to 2 o'clock on Sunday. It's open to the public. You can have a chance to mingle among them and see how they talk to around the world on these radios, and how important this club is to our area to have something like this, because you never know what catastrophic event takes place, and they would be able to still communicate. They run off generators up there, and it's a very interesting thing to see in action, and you can actually go in and listen to and hear people talking from around the world. And this club has been active in this South Lyon area since the 1960s, as far as I know.
Is that
And
guy on 10 Mile with the big antenna one of those guys?
I can't answer that. I don't know who all is involved with that. But they all set up their own portable, they're on top of the hill, and they set up their antenna towers, wired down the whole bit, and they've got tents. They spend the night there. They do calling in the middle of the night and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, it's a nice group of people. It's a club. but they-
9/11, those guys were very active.
Yes, they were. Okay, and the other thing is, where are we on the request for the rock for Witch's Hat area?
I sent a copy of a waiver to Bob last week for the gentleman that is going to do the move. All he needs to do is come to City Hall and get it notarized, and then the move will take place.
Who gets it notarized?
The company that's doing the move.
The one that's, and with his concern, he's the one that requested this. He wants to be held harmless on this.
Right,
He didn't even know for sure who owned the rock. He was gonna go, he didn't wanna go, but it's, you know, it's Jason Rose, he's on our planning commission, he may have a construction.
Justin just the other day.
Jason, yes.
What rock are we talking about?
Yep.
Near your street, down from your street, there's a big one just off the end of the cul-de-sac there. And they wanna park it over there and by the Witch's Hat. They've got it all grooved out and ready for it, but they.
Okay, third largest, so.
Yep.
Third largest rock, is that right, Carl?
That is correct.
See?
Okay. He's got his tape. All right, now, I'd like to call for an adjournment.
Please.
Please.
That's good enough for me.
Does everybody say all in favor? Aye. All right. That ends this meeting of 3 hours and 48 minutes.